Got Chris today, but still Jordan beats. This is nice.
I can't hear any beats.
Oh. Shout out Jordan Klein. There's a little semblance of a beat in your ear. There's got to be.
No.
There's none now. Went away. They're playing games.
Yes, welcome in. It is the deeper dive on a Sunday, which means one thing and one thing only. Eric Lindquist is here, and he's angry. So we're going to take full advantage of that. Look, we appreciate you hanging with us. Hit that thumbs up button, please, if you haven't already. And if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? This is the #1 DFS community across all of YouTube, and we are growing into the #1 sports betting community as well, thanks to sharps like Lindquist in the house. Chris is producing, so not your usual hijinks you're going to be able to get away with Jordan here, Lindquist.
Oh, so I will get away with whatever I want to get away with still. I think that's how it works. I will say there's a massive
timer right there talking.
Yeah, no, Jordan Klein, I got to see the lovely man Friday. What a beautiful human being he is. If you guys all get the pleasure one day of running into him, you can only hope so. Just the smiliest, happiest person on planet Earth. My dog is obsessed with the human being even more than he cares more about Jordan Klein than he cares about me. That's for damn sure. Because I actually tell my dog what to do.
That's the biggest difference right there is you're telling your dog, are you hangry?
I'm not angry at all. Where did that even come from? How did that start? I'm in a good mood. I'm pissed off at Troy Merritt.
You look angry. Look at you, man. You just have this look of anger on you.
I had a great day betting last night in the college basketball NBA streets, doing some stuff out and about in the world. And today I had a really nice golf sweat going until Troy Merritt decided to go 5 over on the front nine. But otherwise, Sam Burns leading the golf tournament. If I can cash that out right, everything else today is a bonus.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Golf is over for you officially. Villanova, nothing here in the second half. We need to keep an eye out here so that you're distracted.
No, I'm ready to rock. I've got Iowa State and Duke coming up here. That is going to be what I do after this. I'm going to be building NBA lineups, watching my Iowa State Cyclones, and then I grew up a Duke fan, so as disturbing as that is, hard to name.
Of course you did.
Well,
of course you grew up a Duke fan. Come on.
Starting when I was like 4. I mean, I just remember like Christian Laettner making a shot and being like, oh, basketball seems fun. And then that started the obsession. 30 years later, still cheering for Duke. Coach K's last year. I don't really trust this team. I don't think they're that good this year, but Iowa State surprised me, ended up playing pretty well against LSU. We'll see if they can run it back here today. It's going to be an uphill battle for both.
Now, see, I heard that it was Cherokee Parks who initially brought you into the Duke franchise.
Cherokee Park. If we want to go Trajan Langdon, if we want to like really shoot it back for my, that was
Langdon
kind of like
is a better. Yeah, Cherokee Parks.
When I was like 10, 11, Cherokee Parks, man, you were really going back on that one a little bit. But post Grant Hill and Laettner, it was like the Trajan Langdon group, and then it became the Jason Williams group, the Jay Williams now, the guys there. I remember being in 7th grade in Minneapolis watching Mike Dunleavy Jr. go completely nuts against Arizona in the national title game in Minneapolis. That was about a 4-hour drive. My dad came home early from a business trip to take me to that game. And I had to scalp a ticket by myself, separate of my dad. I was in the middle of the Arizona section getting booed the entire time in my Shane Battier jersey. It was good times.
See, the chat can do nothing to you. You're numb to anything the chat says. You were sitting in that section with a Duke jersey. You've been through hell and back. It'd be like wearing an Emmitt Smith jersey where I am right now. So
yeah, Butthole Jenkins has nothing on that Arizona section. We'll put it that way.
All right, my friends, 7 games tonight overall. You've already looked at it so that you can sit back, put your feet up when we're done, and watch some college as well as the NBA. But overall, what's jumped out? We are waiting on a couple of key injury news information, so that may not come down. It may be live before lock with EMac and Terry coming up. So just overall, knowing that we have a couple of bigger names that we're kind of waiting on, what's the approach tonight? Stars, scrubs, how are you building?
Well, yeah, be on your computer because there could be a lot of value that shows up. We saw what happened with Delon Wright in the absence of Trae Young the other night. That could be something that is very fascinating. But then I would say this is kind of the main thing that I've taken out of these situations of late, where you have a lot of these studs. I do expect Joel Embiid to play. I don't think I'm overly concerned with him as opposed to some of these other guys. But in the event that you get these guys late ruled in, they make phenomenal plays. That being SGA and Trae Young and De'Aaron Fox, all three of them. You're getting these guys at such low ownership. I think they just become automatic pivots that you need to be interested in off of some of the other chalkier options that might exist, or guys, that carry some upside, some Devin Bookers, some guys that are kind of in that range that might look enticing in the absence of them as guys you want to spend up for if there is value that shows up. But don't write off these studs. We've now seen SGA just play big minutes regardless of situation here when he's played in some of these games. I do expect sooner or later he's going to start sitting more, but against an Orlando team, if he gets ruled in, he becomes probably my favorite tournament play. So possible value, we'll talk through all the situations, but also possible studs that make for really low owned tournament winning options.
Yep, it's a great matchup, as you mentioned there. So I'm waiting for his PRA to come up because we can continue to attack that. Mm-hmm. You know the man's name is coming up at some point. You did mention the Orlando Magic. He's going to come up at some point this show.
No.
You can't help it, my friend. But let's.
Is it too late to just end the stream? Can we just stop?
You have to talk to Chris about that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get paid unless we finish the show. I don't know what's in your contract. So,
yeah,
I'm
don't
here.
Bring up Mo
if you
Bamba.
Want to leave.
Don't bring up Mo Bamba. That's all I'm going to ask.
How do you know I wasn't talking about Wendell Carter? Look, the guy is number one on our projected ownerships, especially on your site where you smash all the time on FanDuel. So maybe I was talking about Carter.
Eytan, come on now.
All right, let's look at our first game here.
Let's do it.
Phoenix is on the run. Trust me, I'll work him in at some capacity, some way. When you're all right, let's start with Phoenix. Heavy favorite, man, on the road here. We were just talking about this off the air before the show started. Into the show now is a great transition with looking at what Phoenix is waiting on. Now, he's not going to be, a major let's get to a guy here in Jay Crowder, but we are kind of looking at a team just overall that doesn't really need to be at full strength to beat the Kings. But what's interesting here, of course, is that super high total north of 232, which we can attack really from both sides. So let's start with Phoenix. You mentioned Booker. You know me, I'm already looking at Bridges over that 3 mark, but let's look at least Booker down on Phoenix.
All right, Booker down on Phoenix. Well, Booker, I think just constantly when he's going to be the only stud available there, he makes an intriguing option. 9,600 now on FanDuel. That's different than I don't know. It was like 10-3, 10-4. We were paying for him less than a week ago here. You're starting to get the pieces assembling here. Soon you're going to get Cameron Johnson back. A month from now, you'll get Chris Paul. But as it stands right now, Jay Crowder's the guy that we're waiting on there as the piece of news. And you're seeing a lot of ownership going towards like an Aaron Holiday over on FanDuel. I don't really see that being something that you need to be taking a shot on. Maybe just having the placeholder knowing that you're going to get better value more than likely as we go, depending on Trae Young and SGA's status. But this Elf Payton ownership over on DK is a little bit out of control for me. He's 3K. I don't really see what's going on with that. It is the strangest thing ever at 28.5%. I for damn sure not going to have that. I would rather play Aaron Holiday a little bit in this spot. If you were going to go to one of the two here at 3,400 at their current ownerships, but I really don't have a ton of interest in getting to either. I expect other things to open up, but it's Devin Booker stance. I don't know how you don't love this guy. He's 21% right now on DK at 9K. I do have guys that I want to pivot to that I said we're going to be some of the lower owned options, but they are more expensive, that being SG and Trae Young. So if I need the money, if the value doesn't show up, pretty easy to know that you're getting it in good against Sacramento at 9K Devin Booker.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what you mentioned with Holiday here. Is there any possibility to have him as a super cheap pivot on FanDuel, knowing that you're going to stay away, right? From
and I know Cameron Payne's out, guys. Like I'm aware, but like Elf Payton,
which is why we're talking about these two guys.
We've seen so many situations now. Like Elf Payton, he's okay. He's 3K flat, and that's the best thing. But he's going to get way more popular than 28.5%. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm going to have like zero. But it's just hard for me to want to go click on that. I said Aaron Holiday would be the preference for me of the two. I think he starts alongside Booker. I think Elf Payton still comes off the bench, but we've seen so many times where they just refuse to give him the run. Now, 22 minutes, 33.5 fantasy points, February 12th. That looks pretty decent, but there is a minutes floor there. There's times when he doesn't even go out and necessarily produce. He's only a 0.82 DraftKings points per minute player on the season. I'm very curious to see where that ownership comes in at. But I said, depending on other value, I'm going to prefer that. I think just looking at 30%-ish, 40%-ish of Alf Payton, it might get even higher than that. So just be very, very aware of that. Not my favorite spot to land on this slate.
Anybody else you want to hit? I mean, we mentioned Crowder could be in, but again, it's against Sacramento. We're anticipating a minutes restriction there. Bridges might get a little bump, if you will, looking at who else is out. But you're working with a narrow window here, as Phoenix could punish this Kings team pretty fast.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. If Jay Crowder's out, maybe there's minutes that open up a little bit more for an Elf Payton. I think Aaron Holiday plays quite a bit either way over his 20 minutes that you're projecting him at there, 3,400. I just feel more confident there, knowing that he'll be lower on between him and Payton. And he's the guy who's been in the rotation constantly here. There's really no qualms that I have about him being a guy that'll be on the floor in this spot and Jay Crowder being limited. But if Jay Crowder's out, then you got to really kind of take a little bit deeper look at everything here. But as it stands right now, I think it's going to be a lot of Booker for me. I think Eytan makes an intriguing piece to kind of have involved in some lineups. Currently 13.5% ownership there at him. That it started to go back up to 7,100. He was low sixes less than a month ago. And that felt like the time you really wanted to be invested in Eytan before Booker got back. But with Booker there, he eats up so much of the usage. 7,500 on FanDuel. The best thing he has going for him is he's low owned at 6.5%, but not a guy that I'm going to go out of my way to prioritize and get 20-30% of today.
All right, let's flip it here to the Kings, and just starting with Sabonis, because he's so heavily projected on really DK and FanDuel. Do you find yourself in bigger builds here, about 18 or so percent, but just under 19% on DraftKings, but heavily on FanDuel? And I mentioned Carter Jr. He and Sabonis are right there at the top, just under 40%. So you find yourself maybe being a little heavier to that, or are you staying away from the Kings tonight?
Oh, I'm going to be very heavy on the Kings pending De'Aaron Fox. And even if De'Aaron Fox is active, Domantas Sabonis is 8,400 on FanDuel. Yeah, he's extremely popular, but he was I was the most exposed to him out of anybody on the top end on Friday. We talked about that whole situation constantly on Live Before Lock, and right after lock at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we got the news De'Aaron Fox was more likely not to play in that game. He got ruled out about half an hour later. And Domantas Sabonis was just a smash. He was 8,100, 37 minutes, 63.5 fantasy points. I mean, we've seen this situation so many times with him in Indiana, where he gets all the usage, assist rate, rebound rate. I mean, he checks every single box you would want here. Now, if De'Aaron Fox is in, I still think he makes an intriguing play, a really good play specifically on FanDuel. But with so many great centers in play on this slate, I do want to be sensitive to what his ownership would come in at. 9,400 is a little bit different when you have a guy like Jokic who's coming in under 10%. And we do have decent value that could exist here on this slate. So I'm not saying that he's out of play at 9,400, but I wouldn't want 18.8% of him at 9,400 against a tough Phoenix matchup if you got De'Aaron Fox ruled in.
So ruled out, that bumps up Sabonis and how much you want to get to him exponentially.
Yeah, and everybody started freaking out the other day because Davion Mitchell didn't play well. The guy played 35 minutes, 24.5% usage. He shot the ball like absolute garbaggio. I would go right back to the well in bulk. 4,300 on DraftKings is just a guy that maybe wouldn't get the respect or recognition he deserves. Identical number over on FanDuel. I mean, he's a rookie, and I generally see rookies play better. It's something Greg and I have talked about a lot with Jalen Green of the Houston Rockets, and I see that being something going forward with a lot of these young guys that are decent enough scorers. I mean, Davion Mitchell is more known for his defensive prowess, and rightfully so, but he's going to continue to get better here as his rookie year goes on into next year. You generally see a little bit of a bump up here, and I just don't know how you could pass over 35 minutes or, that's the ballpark. That happened in a blowout. I could see 36, 38 minutes in the event that you had no De'Aaron Fox there. Immediately would become my favorite piece from Sacramento, not named Domantas Sabonis.
I noticed that you went Garbaggio and not the Garbanzo beans. More popular phrase.
Okay. I didn't even think about it. It's just Garbaggio. It's just absolute trash.
Now I can add to
absolute garbage.
Get out to your repertoire. So you're not saying the same one over and over again. That's all.
Well, thank
you.
You
can expand.
No, you've done this way longer than me, Eytan. I'm willing to take tips.
No.
I'll get my little Rolodex.
I'm not giving tips. Let me clear up any misconception. That was not me giving you any tips. All right.
Other words for trash. Here we go. We've got refuse, litter, garbage, debris. I like that one.
No. I just like the play. No, whoa. Let me slow down. It was the play on garbage in the first place, Garbaggio. That's great. So that opened the door for other plays on garbage. I don't need you going refuse or trash or waste or any of that. You were fine in your own area. I love it. That's all. DiVincenzo, if Fox is out, you going to get to him?
That was an Eric transition. That was well done. Dante DiVincenzo, yeah, I'll get to a little bit. 4,600. I'm not going to be slamming it, but 30 minutes now, back-to-back games here. The main thing is Justin Holiday's back in there. He played, his 41 minutes the other night against Boston in that blowout. He becomes the guy that at 3,900, I'll just go a little bit cheaper and prioritize more of him. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo is already getting around 6.3% rostership here. They're basically, Dante 0.83, but a lot of that with Milwaukee. Justin Holiday 0.7, new circumstances, not as many guys to contend with in terms of usage here. If you get De'Aaron Fox off a floor. So Justin Holiday, 3,900. I had a lot of them the other night. I think I'll get to a lot of them there. Little different not paying 3,400 for him, but 3,900, I'll probably get over the field regardless if you get no Fox.
All right, we'll hit this Magic Thunder game and SGA. We just have to start there. It's a tighter spread, but there's also a lot of concern going on. You see the injury reports, the one place you really need to be all day and every day when it comes to what's going on and how to project. And then based off of who's available, who's questionable, you see here, we have that out every day for you, including the weekend, which is huge. But 6.5, depending on what happens with SGA, maybe because it's Orlando, that moves a little. But let's just look at SGA in, and you've talked about him a bunch. So from a DFS to a betting standpoint, I don't believe the Q or any tag next to him. If that kid's out there, he's playing.
Yeah, he's playing against the Orlando Magic, which helps of everybody and everything. 112.3 defensive rating that puts them bottom 10 in the NBA. They're top 10 in pace, just barely 10th in pace. Orlando, that is. So a great spot to basically be looking at getting the best fantasy producer by an absolute landslide on his basketball team in SGA. And I will say the field seems to, as the day has gone on here, he's gone from like being teenish percentage or low 5%. Oh, De'Aaron Fox just got ruled out. Oh, joy.
There you go.
But SGA 12.9% over on DraftKings and over on FanDuel 10-2 for him. The field's now started to still assume that SGA is more likely to play in these scenarios. I just want to at least have a game plan in place, especially now that we're going to get all of that Sacramento value that we just got done talking about. We'll see where some of the ownership lands on them, but Davion Mitchell is going to eat up a lot of guard spots here now for me, and I think for a lot of people. But SGA 10-2 for him, lovely. As you start looking further down, of course, Trey Mann is somebody that's in play regardless of the news, and he would probably become the best guard play period on the slate in the event that SGA were to sit. 5K over on FanDuel. He's only a 0.77 FanDuel point per minute player, but when you're getting low 30-ish minutes out of him, he's less of a necessity now with Mitchell, but for certain a guy that's still in play here for this Oklahoma City team.
Yeah, I like that play, actually, because Bazley's getting a lot of love right there, at least at the top of our ownership projections. So Mann is not. And if you were just looking at not necessarily the same position, obviously, but just looking at countering some of the field, at least for OKC, that's the less popular option by all means. As for Bazley, do you find yourself getting to him anywhere remotely close? I mean, he's the second highest projected outside of Peyton on DK, a little less, of course, on FanDuel, but just looking at where he is, more in line with Mann on FanDuel, the two of them at like 21%. Super high, though, on DK.
Yeah, it's just going to be really, really fascinating. Before we got Cameron Payne ruled out, and it became Elf Payton, who's the highest optimal. And again, I repeat, I think his ownership is going to go through the roof to around 40-50% by the time the lock comes around, which is my concern that I have for a guy that I don't know what those minutes are going to look like. But the field, if they're going to just assume that he gets 24 minutes at 3K, I'll short him. I'll feel pretty confident about that with Aaron Holiday's existence and Jay Crowder being active. If he's active there, I think there's a path for him to fail there. But Darius Bazley, is the second most optimal player that we have showing up. Yeah, there's a little bit of negative leverage coming in, but considering he's showing up in the optimal at 5,700, just short of the best play period on the slate in terms of optimal appearance rate, pretty hard to just say I wouldn't want to get to him here in this spot. He's kind of been a better defensive player than offensive player, but 2 years ago, back in the bubble, we saw Darius Bazley have a lot of upside when he has somebody out there creating for him. SGA getting back into the mix, somebody that they obviously have a little bit of rapport going back to then with Dennis Schroeder and Chris Paul on the floor with them in the bubble. He's starting to kind of find his way again here. Really high usage rate, over 24.6% usage now his last 4 games. I think he's just an unavoidable piece in lineups. If you're building one, I would be just fine lock and loading him. If you're playing cash, I think he's a lock and load at the power forward spot for both sites, and just makes a really good play on this slate against a terrible interior of Orlando.
Now, this is not a binding statement by any means, my friend, but SGA has popped up on the books as a bettable commodity. So I don't know if he's officially been ruled in or not in this case, but it's pretty hard, right? Usually whenever somebody's even questionable, they're not bettable. So it's leaning, I'm thinking, towards him playing, with that being said. So again, outside of the 3 that we mentioned, I don't know if you're racing to get to anybody else. We can flip to the Magic if you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's ancillary options because it's a very bad Orlando team. These are just 2 terrible teams not going anywhere that match up, which generally can be good for fantasy. I think we hit the broad strokes where Bazley, Mann, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't think you need to play anybody outside of Bazley and SGA on DraftKings. They're really kind of the only guys that are going to fit into lineups for me in the aftermath of Fox being ruled out. But on FanDuel, there's guys that are cheap. And, if you get SGA ruled out, the entire team opens up. And I think the next guy in for me would be Pokusevski, 5,300 on FanDuel. Obviously he's not 1-for-1 swap with any kind of a point guard, but you could see Mann and Maledon end up in that starting lineup. Maledon would be somebody that would become in play at 3,500 on DraftKings. A little bit more of a play for me over there than on FanDuel. The pricing's so soft on FanDuel that I don't really feel the need to roster a 4K Maledon or anything like that with no SGA. I think we could probably do a lot better than that.
All right. So Orlando, right. By the way, SGA points and assists was 33.5. Not a bad number right there.
Yeah.
PRA is going to be a little higher than that.
I mean, you can always head over to OddsShopper and kind of check. It takes 30 seconds or less to be able to go over there. I just clicked on Oklahoma City and Orlando here. Oh, look at that. Mo Bamba blocks just staring us in the face. 38% expected ROI.
No. You don't get to talk about Mo Bamba on this show with me, okay? Right. You have relinquished your right to talk about Mo Bamba. He doesn't exist in your world.
I'm going to have to next. But here's the thing. OKC, it looks like just got pulled off most of the books here. If you've got a bettable commodity, you said 30.5 is the number?
No, 33.5 for his PA, 38.5 for his PRA. Still on right now.
33.5, I would be definitely kind of screwing around with a little bit of that. That feels like a pretty good number.
All right, so let's look at the Magic. We talked about Carter Jr. right there at the top initially. He's dipped some since, as we've got Peyton and Bazley and Holiday even moving up. But as far as the Magic are concerned, he and Hampton are right there as far as like the heavier owned guys on the 7-game slate in that mid to low 20s. And then you have a couple of other guys, and Anthony and Fultz even making a nice little sneak appearance here in that mid 15, 16 range. So at least 4 or 5 guys, even if you want to go down to Franz Wagner, are popping up at like 15% or higher in our projected ownership. You think you're going to be heavy to the field here with the Magic tonight?
Yeah, I think I'm a little uncomfortable of how much Cole Anthony I might get tonight. Right now, currently 16.3% over on DK. Just talking about this guard situation. When you take Jalen Suggs off the floor, which is the situation here, Cole Anthony, 26.8% usage rate. Assist rate takes a nice jump up as well. Jalen Suggs, kind of surprising how many assists he's been creating here underneath this Orlando team when they've been at full strength. Markelle Fultz, 25.9% usage with Suggs off the floor. So I don't think we need to go that crazy to try to make too much of a thing. I mean, 16.2% at 4,400. We all know that there's not really a minutes upside there. I think that kind of caps him on this kind of a slate where I think there's a number of guys now around that $4,400 price tag that, specifically Davion Mitchell. Everything that I'm saying is going to pertain to probably how I view Davion Mitchell. He's 4,300 and I just massively prioritize him. probably wouldn't get to any faults alongside of him even. I just think that because you're not going to see over 22 minutes ever for him, very difficult to land there, as good as he's been in limited time. But Cole Anthony, 6,500. He's going to do everything for this basketball team. It's the best matchup. I mean, how many times do you see the Orlando Magic favored, period, let alone by 6 points here in this spot? So Cole Anthony, RJ Hampton's fine here as well, 3,800. We've seen him play 31 and 29 minutes, although they've been very useless minutes, 0.77 DraftKings points per minute. So just in terms of the backcourt, Cole Anthony, and then maybe some really, really low ownership on some of these other guys that are getting, I think, a little bit overowned as it stands right now. We'll see what happens in the ownership update for Sacramento. But as terms of the backcourt, that's kind of it. Cole Anthony is all for me.
Is Mo Bamba being overowned at 5.8%?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to go past Wendell Carter Jr. first. I mean, this guy.
I asked you about Wendell Carter Jr. first.
I know you said to keep his name out of my mouth, so I'm doing that. Wendell Carter Jr. 6,900. He's a smash. He's phenomenal on FanDuel. 7,800 on DK. It might give some people some sticker shock. It doesn't really give it to me here. I mean, he's just going to be. I mean, it's just as good of a spot as you can possibly get against this Oklahoma City front court that couldn't guard you or me when it comes to basketball. I mean, Darius Bazley, he's been pretty good there, but a little undersized. Isaiah Roby, Olivier Sarr. I mean, these guys are just not capable NBA players. So Wendell Carter Jr., have fun, roster as much of that as you humanly possibly want. I think he makes a smash.
What about Yahoo, though? 28 on Yahoo. Now, you're fighting the field here, Eric. He's at 41%, so he's heavily rostered on Yahoo, but it seemed like on the surface that price is even more workable on Yahoo.
Yeah, it's a great number to kind of get to. I will say, having the ability to roster him at power forward over there is very, very important. I think that'll make him a little bit more intriguing for me, because I just don't think the position is as stacked. I mean, it's just not very good. You got Julius Randle up top there. He's going up against Utah at home. That's not the most intriguing spot. Scotty Barnes against Philly, also not as intriguing, regardless of how unbelievable he's been here of late. Nice little 61 burger against the Lakers the other night. Looked like the best player on the floor there for a second. And yes, I'm talking alongside LeBron. I mean, Scotty Barnes was just nuts. But Wendell Carter Jr., $28. I feel like that's probably one of the best plays you're going to run into on Yahoo, period.
Plus 112 over 1.5 threes. Just take it. Just take it tonight. I'll place the wager for you here legally in PA. Just do it.
I don't want it. You
know you want it. I'll place the bet for you. I'll pay for the bet. How about that?
El Negro Loco. Did I miss news? You might have. De'Aaron Fox is out. That's about it. But yeah, Wendell Carter Jr.
No,
also, Jalen Suggs is definitely out, and that matters a lot for this team. So there's that.
Right. I don't think it was anything that we talked about with news. I think it was maybe just making fun of Mo Bamba.
I will say, Mo Bamba, 5K on FanDuel. You have to take a look at it. But I repeat, when I just say that when you can only roster one center, there's just so much intrigue that I have to get up to Jokic, especially now with value that exists. Embiid. Going to be really hard for 7,900 Rudy Gobert. Still Jonas Valanciunas, 7,800. I think it's too low owned. DeAndre Ayton, 7,500. Really hard for me to land on a 5K Mo Bamba with this minutes variance.
I see. I didn't even bring him up from a DFS standpoint. All right. I wasn't even going to try to insult you in that regard, in that realm. I was just adding that plus 115 or so. What was it, to go over 1.5 threes? The world is against me on this because of you. See, all the popularity that you have, the world is now against me on Bamba. That's fine. I'll ride with it. We'll go to the next game. Tell you about Yahoo coming up as well. Pelicans. 3.5 point road dogs here. This should be a 3-point frenzy, by the way, because of the Pelicans giving up so much in Atlanta with Herter and even a couple of other guys in Hunter. But let's start with the Pelicans. McCollum, we already know the deal here with Ingram, nothing changing there. So looking at where we have an opportunity or two to maybe take advantage of ownership, McCollum is going to be there at about 14%. So yes, a spend up option at either the 1 or the 2, Mr. Lindquist, but you have some pretty decent leverage with only about 14% of the field getting to him on 7 games.
9,200 on DK looks like it would be incorrect. Like it just seems like it would be, and it's not. And that just makes him somebody that I think you still want to get over the field to. I mean, Rinpax put it perfectly on the NBA Slate Starter podcast, which, by the way, we're going to try out Twitter Spaces tonight. Come hang out with us tonight as we're doing that show live. F it, we'll do it live. That's going to be what happens. But CJ McCollum in this circumstance, he's proven to just be an alpha. And we saw it sparingly when he was absent Damian Lillard in Portland, but now it just becomes really pronounced, especially with no Brandon Ingram on the floor. That usage jumps up over 30% in that situation, even with alongside Ingram, 29.2% usage in his time now with the Pelicans, on top of an assist rate that's just going through the moon now. I can't believe how good he's been in this circumstance. I think 9,200, sub 15%. I think he becomes very, very intriguing to me. So I'm going to be firing up some of that. He's only shooting guard at 8,700 on FanDuel. He's already gotten around 22%. I think that's about appropriate for him. Doesn't seem normal to say that, oh, I like him a little bit more on DraftKings, but I think he might get a little bit overlooked at that 9,200 number on this slate. We've got some other studs. We've got some value to kind of pay up for, but I still think McCollum owns a 55, 60 point ceiling here. So I'm going to be firing that up a little bit over that 14, 13% number.
Can you work with him on either FanDuel or Yahoo where you're kind of locked in, right? FanDuel, you're locked into the 2. Yahoo, you're locked into the 1. So a little cheaper comparative, right, at 8,700. But again, this is your 2 guard. Maybe a little bit easier if you're looking at a point pivot for Yahoo at, again, $39.
Yeah, he's just fine there at that number. If you want to try to get a little bit different there on Yahoo, $39 for him. I guess point guard, that's not as fun. Like on FanDuel, you can play him at shooting guard here, 8,700. Right. And now we just got more news. Cameron Payne's out, and now you're going to get Elf Payton starting. I'm going to kind of go and revisit some of that here too. I love how the 2 games we've already covered here, we get massive news to kind of like shake both of those up a little bit here. Specifically,
but you covered a bunch of those areas though.
I did for the most part. Yeah, I mean, but I like Elf.
We don't
Payton.
have to go back.
Yeah,
right?
But Elf Payton, this is his first start of the year. So, I mean, we don't have a precedence for this. He's 3K. Now you just play a ton of him. So there you go. Enjoy Elf Payton Day. We're all going to just really have to buckle down and roster an egregious amount of that now that he's officially starting here in this spot. Thank you so much to Loco, by the way. I was never mad at you. I could never be mad at you, Loco.
No, I just thought I picked up on his sarcasm immediately. And for some reason you chose not to.
Oh, I didn't. Because I'm just, I'm incapable. It's like I can't remember what that SNL character was that just can't even react to it, but doesn't matter. We're going back to the Pellies here. CJ McCollum around the industry makes a great play here. Hard for me to land on anything else here outside of Jonas Valanciunas on FanDuel. I think on Yahoo it's pretty unnecessary here as well. We can kind of move on and save time. CJ McCollum or bust. Jonas Valanciunas FanDuel.
All right. Atlanta, by the way, Bridges, 1.5 threes without the news was plus money. He's now down to minus 104. So hopefully people got in earlier. That's going to be key with all these guys out. So let's go to Atlanta then.
Oh, hold up.
And
Devontae Graham just got ruled out of the middle of nowhere. Okay. Well, let's talk Pelicans. At least we're on this. So much news breaking, like
wow,
throughout the beginning of this show, 30 minutes in, but so I just said I didn't like anything there, but that was assuming 28 to 30 minutes here of Devontae Graham. Initially, my first reaction is thinking that obviously CJ McCollum's going to start at the point here. They had Devontae Graham as a guy that they slid over to start now the last 4 games. I think you're looking at a possibility of getting a Najee Marshall in there to start. It's going to be Jay Val, Herbert Jones, Jackson Hayes, CJ McCollum. That 5th guy, if it ends up being Jose Alvarado, good Lord, help us all, because 4,400, he's not going to be all as intriguing as opposed to like a Davion Mitchell for me or Elf Payton, who's just a smash now. You really got to be specific with those guard spots with the news that's broken the last 30 minutes. But you could get the outside chance of a Najee Marshall or, God help me, Trey Murphy, who is somebody that I'm going to be forever linked to for a good call for once. That's nice. But Trey Murphy, if you were to get a start, 4,900, not really all that intriguing for me either. So Najee Marshall, 5,200 DK, probably going to be harder to land on, but at least he'd be starting a little bit more minutes upside. But Jose Alvarado, just be on the lookout for that. He's a guy on FanDuel who can get there a lot in terms of stocks, but he's 5,300 now. Probably going to be a pass for the rest of the position or for the rest of the team.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially as we get new stuff coming in here as we adjusted. So let's flip and go back to the other side here, and that's the Hawks, and trying to take advantage of this in any capacity that we can. And doesn't look like you have a lot of popular players, at least from our projected ownership here. So depending on how you view this, especially with anything relevant that flips over from New Orleans to Atlanta, you can at least gain some ground, some leverage on the field if you're looking to go with some Hawks tonight.
It just really depends. I mean, if you get Trae Young ruled out, it opens up entirely to everything. But Trae Young, as it stands right now, he's a guy that I feel like gets ruled in more than he doesn't. And I say that knowing full well that on Friday was Delon Wright day. We all know kind of what to do there, but he's 4,900 there. Wright is. That's a lot different than 3,300. He played about as well as you could ever ask him to. I don't think I could really prioritize him the same kind of way that we did the other night. It's just something you got to be very price sensitive to. And, your knee jerk reaction is to try to roster a ton of them there. I think I would be more intrigued if rostering some of these small forward guys, specifically Bogdan Bogdanovic over on DraftKings, 6,800 now. If you were to get no Trae Young in there, he goes from being a 1% owned guy to a guy who'll be 15, 20% owned. Also played phenomenal, but 28.6% usage. Definitely a guy who can create from time to time, although he was definitely out looking for his own shot the other night here. It's a Pelicans team that just doesn't have a whole lot on the defensive end here. It should be up in pace, nearly 120 implied total here. So if Trae Young's out, those guys all open up. Clint Capella now, at least he's expensive enough. I don't have to roster this dumb anymore because it's been really very difficult for me to land on him because it just doesn't seem to pan out as many times as what it should based on his rates last year in the absence of John Collins. But such is life here. At least we don't have to roster him over on DK. Would be a very low owned guy. DeAndre Hunter would probably become the next piece I would really land on absent Trae Young. But if Trae Young is ruled in here, it is basically just going to be him for me from this team.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought it would be a decent spot for somebody like Herter tonight too. But, looking at overall, you're right. Just waiting on news and information here. And, he's getting about 3.2, same cost that you're getting for Hunter, clearly about $300 or more. So neither one of these guys are getting heavily. But again, a lot of that is concern about what to do with Trae Young. So that's going to swing exponentially. But apparently you don't like the spot for Herter tonight, even if Young is out.
FanDuel's the only place I would kind of entertain the idea of rostering him. He's 5K over there, a little bit different. He would just be a very contrarian play. And, I had a big night earlier this year. I do like Kevin Herter as an actual basketball player. Can go out there and just create from time to time and really get it going. But it's just the usage isn't going to be there alongside Trae Young. Bogdan Bogdanovic in the second unit comes on and just eats up all of that usage as well. Hard for me to really see enough opportunity. Also, Delon Wright even has been playing alongside Trae Young a little bit more here. It's only been 13, 14 minutes in some of these games where they're both active, but it's enough that it takes mostly away from Kevin Herter in that situation. I just don't feel great about it.
All right, we're going to get through these last 4 games here. Hit that thumbs up, please, if you haven't already. And make sure you're subscribed here. We constantly keep telling you about all the content going on the Odd Shopper channel as well. So you want to make sure that you're subscribed there. And if you see on the screen what's going on here with Yahoo, our presenting sponsors. So we want to tell you about everything with Yahoo Fantasy and the NBA, where you can check out our exclusive limited time offer. You'll get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Just be new to Yahoo, sign up for an account via that link below, deposit, and play. That's it. All right? You get in, you get your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, and then you can put that to use immediately so that you don't have to listen to not miss, but you don't have to listen to every single quip from Lindquist and Shander in order to make some money here, right? You could take a quip off, can't you?
No. You want all the quippy long stockings.
Is that it? See, there you go. I like that. No issue with that. I'm not going to ask you to extend the repertoire.
That was a sharp
long
That was a sharp.
That was
quip,
great,
if you will.
That was beautiful, my friend. All right, so let's steam through it here. All right, we got 4 games, final 20 minutes. I have no problem whatsoever with you in thinking that we can't get through it all. Utah, let's start there. Decent total for the next 2 games, and then we have that low one in Philadelphia. So Knicks hosting the Jazz. Let's look at Utah, tight favorite here because of what we're waiting on. But really, when you look at Donovan Mitchell, he's going to be the big one there. Trent Forrest, though, is also getting a ton of love.
SGA got ruled out just now.
Oh, void that bet.
So no SGA, no De'Aaron Fox. Now we got to just be very selective. So Trent
Can we
Forrest
just go back and
that,
do the OKC game and like have the live before live?
I was about to have my discussion about be on the lookout for Trent Forrest starting. They've been doing a lot of different things with this starting lineup, absent some of these pieces. Juan Hernangomez played the last two. I just think everybody's kind of unnecessary that doesn't play for OKC and doesn't play for Sacramento. And it's just unbelievable. I mean, this is just like unbelievable how different this slate is. I spent 15 minutes looking up Trent Forrest today, thinking that he was going to play a boatload of minutes here. Not really a guy that we have to look at whatsoever now. Mike Conley's on his rest day here. Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson, I know seems insanely expensive. 6,100 for him on DK, but I still think that's a guy that you can probably play a little bit of. As insane as that is on FanDuel, he's 5,200. I think you could still roster quite a bit of him there, but Donovan Mitchell was always kind of the prize jewel of this situation here. 8,500 with his return. So as opposed to this game that we just saw without Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley, and everybody takes a substantial hit because Donovan Mitchell just eats up way more of the usage. 1.23 FanDuel point per minute player here on the season. One of my favorite plays of the day there, sub 9K. I know we're going to be able to pay up and play whoever we want on the top end, but he's still a guy that I want to be overexposed to.
All right, so we get a little lower there. Is there anybody else that you think? Again, we talked about the center position earlier. We still have a couple, including Embiid, to determine what's going on with him. But Gobert, 7,700 on DK. You can get some leverage here if you like him.
Yeah, so Gobert is kind of like the massive wild card. It's been nice. He's a guy that I kind of jammed quite a bit when we saw Hassan Whiteside got ruled out the other night, just because I didn't trust Juancho Hernangomez to play as much of those backup minutes. He only ended up playing 27 minutes, but that was because they blasted the Clippers out of the water. 7,900 for him. I think he's going underrepresented at just 8% over on FanDuel. If I'm trying to get off of some of these studs who we're going to have all the value in the world at the guard spot specifically to pay up for, I think Rudy Gobert makes for a fantastic guy to kind of pivot off of them at center. On DK, 7,700, because you're only rostering 8 guys, it's going to be a lot harder for me to land there. We have a 3K Elf Payton. We have a 4,300 Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. We have Trey Mann now. We have Teo Maledon, who's 3,500. I said, maybe not. I basically just kind of assumed that SGA was going to play here in this spot, but with him out, it opens up an opportunity for Trey Mann and Maledon to show up in a lot of lineups as well. I mean, I don't really know what to say. I mean, we have all the value at guard. Why not just pay up for the top end centers? So that would be the case against Gobert on DK.
Okay. Anybody else that you want to make a case for? I know, Bogdanovic out.
It's so hard to want to land on like Juancho Hernangomez at 3,400 now, though.
Royce O'Neal.
He was sketchy. Yeah, he was sketchy value. Royce O'Neal is wasting a roster spot, I think, at this point, 4,500. It's just so freaking hard to land on a guy like that who now is starting to have some of those minutes dissolved into guys like NAW. Jordan Clarkson's playing, a little bit less than we were kind of hoping for. But again, part of that was the Clippers blowout. I think Jordan Clarkson's somebody that I'll probably be a little bit over the field on at 6,100 on DK, consider he's 2% owned. But that's just a massive 150 play. There's nothing else from this team. You have to be selective and find guys with upside. And so Donovan Mitchell, Gobert, moving on.
All right, let's hit the other side here then. It's the Knicks, and it's, again, 220.5, decent here at the Garden. You've got a couple of bigger options, at least from a namesake standpoint, and then just kind of looking at where we are with our projected ownership, it's really going to be Randall and Barrett. But again, you're kind of at like 16% for either of them.
Yeah, well, over on FanDuel, they're massive plays because they've been under-owned over on that site constantly. I think even on Yahoo, they're guys that I want to get to. $40. You have strict positionality, the power forward spot for Julius Randle, $40. Wendell Carter's my priority at $28, especially now that, you get OKC. We're going to get a lot of pieces from that team in lineups. Nice to get another piece on that one, keep that game intact and capture a lot of upside. But Julius Randle, $40 over there, specifically on FanDuel for Julius Randle, $8,500, completely underpriced for this situation against Utah. Juancho Hernangomez and Rudy Gobert, two very different types of defenders. You would want to have less time of Rudy Gobert on the floor for Julius Randle, but we'll see kind of how they end up matching that up because I'm assuming Gobert will have to take him a little bit more than Mitchell Robinson. We'll see. But I'm not worried about individual defense. I'm worried about what their salaries are relative to expectations. And Julius Randle really sticks out. And then RJ Barrett, the FanDuel du jour, 7,100. He's been eternally priced over there, really starting to show some massive upside from time to time. It's starting to get to the price now at 7,100 where we need to start buying back into him. He got up all the way to 8K. It started to trail off here. I think he makes a really nice investment, even at 27% ownership. Hard to avoid getting to a little bit of him on this slate too.
All right, so we move on, right? Unless you want to hit Alec. Oh, well, we should mention Alec Burks, even if you don't like him, because he is grabbing more rostership ownership than anybody else. I'm not going to bring up Fournier or anybody like that.
I think it's going to change just because of all of the guard value that's shown up here now. It's going to be very difficult for me to advocate for him. I know he was somebody that we might have been able to look at a little bit on FanDuel earlier, but at 5,800 over on DK, it's just it was going to be hard for me to land on him there, period. And now it's going to be almost impossible. So he'll be low owned. That's the nicest thing I can say about him. I guess the one guy I want to give a shout out to, because he can always be a flamethrower from time to time, is a $4,700 Fournier over on FanDuel. I think that's kind of the last guy. We've seen this usage be really, really capped alongside Barrett and Randall. Barrett just playing a larger role in this offense, but he's still found a path to over 30 fantasy points. And that's because the assist rate is starting to take a little bit of a run up. Julius Randle last year was just distributing like at a ridiculous rate. I mean, he was putting up triple doubles and had that kind of upside. It's become a little bit of Evan Fournier taking over some of that creation in this offense as well. So just something to keep an eye on. I think 4,700, considering I can roster him at small forward and not use him for a guard spot, he becomes intriguing for FanDuel for me.
Yeah, I had to stay away from him. Utah's just a tough team to shoot on, but from a DFS standpoint, it makes sense because you mentioned the assist that you can get and throw in there. Boston, Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart are going to be two popular guys on our projected ownership. You're always going to have an Al Horford, sneaking in there as well, just at about 9%. So you have some options here, including a spend up with Tatum.
Sorry,
are you muted?
It's going to be Tatum. Okay. It's got to be just Tatum for me now. Marcus Smart was somebody that 35 minutes ago I would have had some interest in, specifically on the FanDuel slate. DK, less of a necessity there. Sitting at 6,300. Does he have upside? Sure, but not relative to a 3K starting Elf Payton, a 4,300 Davion Mitchell, a Trey Mann, a Teo Maledon. Oh man, it's just insane. It feels like a live before lock here right now as all the news is coming in, and I keep updating my sheet because these are guys that we just don't even need to talk about anymore. It's just Marcus Smart is kind of a write-off. Derek White is irrelevant. It's Jason Tatum at 10K, Jaylen Brown at 8K on DraftKings. We can kind of be talked into a share or two of it, but with all of the value, you're just kind of landing in an 8K spot for a guy with just 50-point upside, hoping you get that from him. When you have guards that just make it possible to get to Jokic and Embiid and all these other super ceilings, like I'm going to prioritize them every single time. I think you should too.
Does Villanova win this game?
I have no idea. I haven't watched a single second because I don't know if you know this, but there are things going on in the NBA streets, Eytan. I'm a little bit I'm on a roll here right now. Let's keep it going.
Oh, well, wait a second. I just did a show last night with Rinpack where the first 10 minutes of Michigan, you wouldn't even know that game was on. And you're telling me that you can't glance over to a game cast without even your eyes showing it? You're a pro at reading a prompter.
No.
Get out of here.
Just YouTube chat and
Oh, yeah, right. Yep, because you've never done multiple things at once. Shame on me for even bringing that up.
Never once.
Let's look at Jokic. Oh, hold on a second. Let's look at Jokic with Embiid. Let's look at Jokic without Embiid. We've also talked about a couple of other centers. We still have Eytan. I get it. But let's just look at Jokic first and foremost, because if you are spending up for him, regardless of what happens around him, he's not super, at least heavily owned, where we have him for that cost.
Jokic is my favorite spend up. 12K over on the center position for DK on FanDuel. It's just one of those things where if you expect Joel Embiid to play the massive amount of minutes that he's played here constantly, the minutes have started to trail off and nobody's talking about it. 37, 35, 34 here. They're going to start limiting him because they have title aspirations. They are not going to go out and play him 40 minutes a night going forward. That's just not going to be a thing here for Embiid. Jokic, this team in getting into the West, and it's going to be impossible for them to catch the Suns or anything like that, but they need to keep moving up in seeding, having home court when you get Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray back in the mix, which is coming sooner than you think it is. Going to be excited to watch this team at full blast, and it's going to really cap Jokic's upside at that point. But as it stands right now in the season, a 1.75 FanDuel point per minute producer, 1.85 on DraftKings where you get double, triple bonuses. mean, I just don't see how you don't roster a ton of him, especially considering the value we have here. He's under 10%. I expect that to change drastically between here and now, but I don't think there's anything else even from Denver that looks remotely interesting on this slate. I mean, it is all of the Jokic and nothing else.
All right. If nothing else, then I'm not going to press you, especially on a 220.5 total there. I'm not even going to bring up my Marcus Smart, Will Barton, same game parlay. Toronto getting 6.5 on the road here. Might change, you would think, if Joel Embiid is ruled out. I think at this point, you're right, where the schedule is against Toronto, the stretch that the Sixers have had, just give them the night off. To be honest with you, it makes the most sense to just not play them entirely. But the minutes are waning because of the playoff race. Absolutely. With that said, let's start with Toronto first and foremost and how you can attack this team, especially because teams have been able to attack Philadelphia from the outside.
So we have Gary Trent really popular at 6,200. I really don't have a ton of interest in there. Pretty shot dependent. You have the opportunity for guys like Armani Brooks. I don't know how he's like such an afterthought on this slate now. He was actually going to be somebody to talk about, according to the Boom Bust tool, where he was getting some love there in the optimal percentages, but he's just irrelevant now. I don't know how I'm going to land in any kind of a mid-range situation that isn't going to be just targeting flat out upside. Yeah, he could do it because he's done it before. He goes out and hits 6, 7, 8 threes. You've got to love that kind of a guy for sure. You can go bet some of those 3-point props on him, but at 18% on this slate, that's a pass. It's going to be a lot of Pascal Siakam for me, 9,100. It's nice that he's a spend up that isn't at the guard position where we have all the value at. You have an opportunity to try to take some ancillary shots on somebody like I don't even really know how I would land on anybody else there. I mean, Armani Brooks, yeah, there's no Fred VanVleet, but I don't think he really is going to be a guy you have to worry about that much here. As much as I like Gary Trent and wanting to try to take some of those shots, I can't anymore. I mean, I'm going to just pay down $3K more for the Elf Paytons and the Davion Mitchells of the world. So if anybody else wants to try to make that a thing, sweet. But Pascal Siakam, clear-cut priority for me.
Yeah, and you start to look at other spots that we talked about for him, as far as him being a pivot, especially on like Yahoo or even FanDuel. DK, you have that workability there, 9,100. Trent, look, I'm taking him over 2.5 at minus 110 threes, only because you can attack the Sixers. But yeah, I mean, he is super high owned at 6,200 there on DK. Anybody underneath you think you can scrape with here with Toronto? Thaddeus Young, somebody along those lines? Or you just Scotty, any love for 8,300 overpriced Scotty Barnes?
It's just too hard on this slate to land on them. I mean, you have this entire mid-range. Scotty Barnes, 8K on FanDuel, and he's getting 11.3%. I mean, that's just bonkers to say out loud here. He's been unbelievable. I mean, he just put up a 60 spot. So we know that kind of upside exists. That wasn't an OT game, but 42 minutes that he played against the Lakers isn't exactly out of the norm for him here. He's a guy. The nice thing about playing a Scotty Barnes too is he's so good at not getting in foul trouble. So if you're going to just try to target a really lone upside guy at 3-4% on DraftKings at 8,300, and you were to just say, you know what, I'm going to make 150 and I'm going to put him in a couple lineups just because he has that kind of upside, I don't completely hate it. He's not going to project out well, but he's going to play 38 minutes. And that becomes somebody you should at least talk about, but that's about as far as it goes. He is far from a priority, but that's about the only other piece from this team to look at.
All right, 3 games in 7 minutes. We're going to knock this out of the park here. Sixers, so much with Embiid, but again, we've talked about, let's just knock a couple of guys out, right? You can get to Harris all you want. That may be a guy that you like tonight, and that's fine. I'm not going to fight with you on that because you let me get my Mo Bamba shit out of here. But, I mean, Maxey loses so much value, right, with other guys we talked about at that position. James Harden may be the lone spend up here with Embiid out. So outside of Harris, this gets really tricky tonight.
I love James Harden for tournaments. This becomes a guy that I'm going to get well north of. I mean, you can play him at small forward. Once again, it is so important to have some of these spend ups at studs, be it center, small forward, power forward. James Harden on FanDuel opens up all of that. And then on DraftKings, you're getting him at 10-1, sub 15%. Yeah. I mean, it just feels too good to be true. I think he's going to be the guy who plays a lot more minutes for this team going forward, tries to kind of secure down their spot here in the East. But as you can kind of let Joel Embiid get limited a little bit here going towards the playoff chase. But James Harden's always been capable of playing big minutes. He fills up a box score in a myriad of ways. The rebound rate has been very disappointing, I would say, but that's going to happen here when you have Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid on the floor with you. I mean, he is out there to create on the offensive end. Nice to see him start to look for a shot a little bit more here. I mean, we've seen north of 22% usage now the last 5 games, which is great, coming off of some really low usage in some spots, but he's out there getting tons of assists, just like you're looking for. 10-1 is too cheap for him on DraftKings, a guy I'm going to get to a lot. And then I'm just going to lock him in. I'm going to make sure, and this is something that I think you should all do if you're on Fantasy Cruncher. I think I'm just going to make sure I do not get him at the shooting guard spot. You can click on the little arrow and put him in at small forward. We have so many good guard values. I don't want James Harden to accidentally fit in at too many spots in my shooting guard spot. I know some people might argue with that and say, oh, well, you just let it roll however it comes out. But with the ability to roster him at that position, there's no way around it. I think you have to play him there.
By the way, speaking of have to and can't, you can't play maxi threes anymore. The books are at like 160 now. We were ahead of that one, I think, for like a month. All right, so
hang on. Nobody said Embiid out. Nobody said that. He's questionable. We both expect him to play. I want to play Joel Embiid, especially on DraftKings, where salary is like not even remotely an issue anymore. He's 11-3 under 5%. He's a phenomenal stud to get to. If he's out, Godspeed to all of us, because it becomes DeAndre Jordan, guess his minutes day. And I don't know how I go about guessing it. All I know is that he's been, even at this absolute terrible existence of a basketball player he is now, 1.05 DraftKings points per minute. So if he plays 20 minutes, he's automatically in play at 3,100 on DraftKings. I still probably wouldn't want to use too many FanDuel spots on it with Jokic there, with some other guys at the center spot, but for sure becomes instantly a phenomenal value piece so long as he's starting. George Niang could become somebody from an ancillary option, but then you just jam Harden, you jam Harris, you jam Maxey, and you move on with the day if he's out.
Yeah, I mean, the best part about Embiid out is also with Harden running that second unit too. You'll probably get even more minutes from Harden, assuming this game is close. All right, man. Last game here for us. By the way, Tobias Harris over 1.5 threes plus 102. I'm going to bet that for you, and I'm going to bet the Mo Bamba bet for you as well. All right.
Okay. Free money. Okay. I'll take it.
Oh, so now Mo Bamba's free money. Okay.
Mo Bamba.
San Antonio, 7-point dog. No Seth, right? Or Steph, pardon me. What do we got here with the Spurs?
Spurs.
They don't need him.
Yeah, this is going to be a hard
team. It's not really much, at least outside of Keldon Johnson.
Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell. I mean, Devin Vassell was going to be a massive piece of my portfolio here. You just had a lot of interesting things happen where Keita Bates-Diop got ruled out. Lonnie Walker's continuing to be out. Doug McDermott's continuing to be out. But considering you still have DeJounte Murray there, it becomes a guy that I'm less inclined to take the amount of shots I was going to. He projects out really nicely here. 34 minutes for him. Don't look at the box score the last two. It'll make you vomit a little bit. But I think I'm more willing to kind of mix him into lineups than a Gary Trent, who's going to be a little bit more popular, I think, than what Devin Vassell will be. So I just want to kind of make that clear that I think that that's a decent enough pivot off of him. It's only about 3-4% difference. But I do think Devin Vassell also, if you do get Philadelphia news, having extra exposure to Spurs and Golden State isn't the worst thing, just to be able to show up for tournaments and have that opportunity.
So real quick, we're going to end with the Warriors, but we did get that super chat, and I wanted to get back to it because I missed this here from Jin Chiriki. What do you guys mean when you say if you're playing cash? You want to just explain that real quick for people that are newer to this?
So cash games are basically when you're trying to build like the optimal lineup. We're not trying to worry about ownership. We're basically just locking in the best plays on the slate, the best lineup you can possibly play. And you're playing them head-to-head contests. You're playing them in 50-50 contests where half the people get paid out, half of them don't. You just want to build the best possible lineup. You're not worried about ownership as much.
All right, so let's end here with the Warriors. Mention no Curry, don't need him, no problem there. What are you doing here with this game? Pretty decent spread without him. So there is a little bit of a threat of a blowout here for the Warriors.
All I know is I have no idea how this starting lineup is going to get put together. Draymond Green started the second half absent of Steph Curry, which was kind of fascinating here. There's going to be something to mine out here. I just don't know what it is. Klay Thompson, though, 7,900 on DK. If nobody else is going to play him, we've seen his usage spike up massively. The highest usage he had all season was last game. He shot the ball terrible in the second half, 37.3% usage. Klay Thompson, sub 10%, needs to be in some lineups for you, even on DraftKings at that number. Over on FanDuel, all of these guys are going to be more popular because their prices just aren't as good. 6,800 for Klay Thompson there. Jordan Poole is going to start, I'm assuming, here in this spot. He's been starting even alongside Steph the last 3 because he's played that well. 7,600 might look wonky for him here, but he's another guy that has played so well. On 7K on DK, he's the most negatively leveraged, or at least he was coming into this show. Now it's Aaron Holiday. That's kind of fascinating to look at, but he's third most negatively leveraged player. I'm not going to prioritize him, but I'm definitely going to play a little bit of a 7K guy that I think has a lot of upside absent Steph.
All right. Anybody else? We talked about centers that you liked here. I can't imagine Looney, even though he's popular, is going to be one of them.
No. Kevon Looney is not going to be somebody that I get to anymore. Just not a chance.
I tried to just get you real quick
because you had a straight face for it, though. Else. That was adorable.
Well, you were looking at something else. I figured maybe you were looking at the TV timeout, $1:27 to go. Here comes Nova up 67.59. The 132.5 under is still in play.
Oh, yeah,
maybe
then they're fine.
At that.
They're up 8. Yeah, what are you? You're so dramatic. Okay, let's go State. Let's go Duke. That's all I got.
Iowa State. You won't get anybody to root for that team. All right, everybody. Thank you. Eric Lindquist is on Twitter. Make sure you follow him. Great job on Prize Picks, by the way, my friend. Forgot to open the show with that one.
Thanks, buddy.
Keep tweeting out those big wins for us to see. And Live Before Lock coming your way next. So don't go anywhere with EMac and Terry. Thanks, Chris, producing. See, this is what Jordan. I know Jordan missed us this week. I know he did. Thinking he's on vacation. Damn it, where are these guys? Thanks again for you hanging out there. Hit that thumbs up button. And make sure you're subscribed here, the Odd Shopper channel as well. And click that link for Yahoo. My goodness, take advantage of that. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, buddy.
like to think of myself as a quality from a D-bad.
All right, Awesemo, here we are. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Sunday night, back with one Terrence Michael McBride. That would be T McB, Digital B21 over there on Twitter. I am at EMac DFS, and of course it is Awesemo_ on Twitter. We look forward to having some fun here as we head into lock. 2 games tipping off at 6 o'clock, and then we get the rest of the slate going with a pair of games at 7 and then a pair of games at 8:30. We, of course, also have March Madness going on right now. I needed I'm not going to get it. I need Gillespie to hit another 3-pointer for my parlay to be live.
Ooh.
Yes, he took 9 shots, but he's only made 2. I needed 2.5. I can't be mad because he did take 9. That's a lot in a college game.
It is. And that's, kind of to the point that the guys were making on the morning strategy show this morning of, tournaments, a lot of fun and all, but we're really are watching some bad basketball out there a lot of the time. It's, guys going 2 for 9 and so on, and a lot of bad shooting, a lot of missed shots that keep these games close and exciting and cause those upsets. But it is always fun. I was watching spring training this afternoon. I was watching the Yanks playing the Tigers this afternoon instead of watching college basketball to further the argument that those guys were making earlier.
There we go. Well, we've got a lot of fun coming tonight. So we're going to go by position here. I want to remind you that we are sponsored by Yahoo. You're going to want to hop on over there because they have their $20,000 baller. Last I checked, it is about to fill up. They do have several secondary contests. I'm in a couple of those. I've made one lineup for over there, and so we will discuss that. We are going to stay on a half hour extra to discuss Yahoo, and then we, of course, are going to cover the remainder of the slate here. But if you have not yet signed up for Yahoo, if you do want to join Yahoo, come in below our links here or on the link below us here in the YouTube description. Click on that, go on in there to Yahoo, make your first deposit, and you will get up to $10 match by them, and then they're going to contact us, and we're going to get you 30 free days of Awesemo premium content because you joined via our link. Good times to go.
So we're on for an extra half hour today, or are you making that up again?
No, I looked at the thing.
I looked at the thing right before the show, and it said 6:03. You might have switched them around.
No extra. Well, good, because I've got people here, so that's better. I did a show last night where I did jump in. And
that's true. You did
go an extra half hour.
Right,
and by the way, Chris, screenshots, not only screenshots, but messages from midweek 2 weeks ago when we had the same thing and somebody changed that extra half hour. Thank you for taking away that extra half hour, but it was lurking out there for a little while. Just want you to know that, Chris.
It is fun that we haven't actually done that on any of the 3 shows that we've done since we started doing this show, but you said it for 2 out of the 3.
I know. Well, we'll make it up to you.
Sunday freebies for Yahoo. They're good sponsors. They're good pals of ours. Why not? What the hell?
Absolutely. Well, we're gonna make it up to you guys. I'm gonna drop the link to the Fred Van Elite Fan Club in there. If you join that and you win with an Awesemo avatar, you will get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. Today, since I mucked up and just took away an extra half hour of fun from you guys, I am going to give the top 3 any position with an Awesemo avatar. So if you finish 8th, 27th, and 40th, the top 3 with an Awesemo avatar will get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content to make up for you. And I know, Tom, if you are watching, we do have dual controls on this. Terry is the one that grants these promo codes to me when I ask for them. So there is dual controls because I don't know how to make the promo codes myself. Sure. We haven't given one out in a hot minute here, so we're going to do 3 tonight. So there we are. All right, let's get in here to guards. We had some news here with no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no De'Aaron Fox, and no Cameron Payne. That is going to bring about Davion Mitchell. Elfrid Payton getting a start this season. I believe it is his first of the year. Former Knickerbocker, Elfrid Payton. Good times there.
Briefly.
Good times there. You got Teo Maledon. You've got Trey Mann popping up there. The first 3 I mentioned, they're all $10. I think Mitchell might be 11 on Yahoo, and Trey Mann is 16. I have 3 of those 4 in my Yahoo lineup right now. Let's start at the top end though, because now we know we have a ton of wiggle room here, and we've lost options in De'Aaron Fox and no Steph Curry on the slate tonight. He is out. Probably, I think I saw he's out until April 1st. I know he's out for a few games. What do you want to do at the top of the guard slot tonight?
I mean, it's completely different than I was looking earlier in the day. Totally different slate than you and I wrote about this afternoon. We've got guys like RJ Hampton kind of standing off to the side now, like, what, after those, that list of guards that you just read off, because everything changed when we dropped those few players. So we did just get Trae Young is going to play. So we do still have him on the board at 10-2 and 10-4 from site to site. And he's kind of an interesting piece as one of the higher price guys at the position. But yeah, I really think this is a guard's value spot today at guard. We've got a lot on the board between those value guys that you listed off. I can't stand Elf Payton in real basketball, in fantasy basketball, or I'm sure he's a nice guy. I was going to throw in the third one, but I'll stop at the 2. It's just a basketball thing. He's probably a nice dude. 0.82 fantasy points per minute across all situations this season, 17.1% usage. In the starting lineup, like you said, he's more likely to see a little bit of additional usage, see some facilitation opportunities. He's got a 25.5% assist percentage for the entire course of the season. He's also got a 40.7% true shooting percentage in his limited role. That's atrociously bad. So Elf is who he is. He's going to play between 20 and probably 28 minutes. We've got him projected at like 21.4, even in the starting lineup. Maybe that hasn't gotten updated yet. So we'll see where he comes down in terms of minutes, but the value is obviously there at minimum price on both sites. You can kind of just plug and play and grab. If he gives you 20 and change, you're A-okay. If he gives you more, you are home free, at least as far as that roster slot is concerned. And at the minimum price, and the same applies to any of the other extreme value plays, it's really all about just what they buy you at these other positions. So he's a plug and play from that regard. Trey Mann is very, very much on the board. 5,000 on the FanDuel slate, 5,400. He's a different type of play than a guy like Elf. He's like a fair mid-range price, lower mid-range. You can definitely get to him on both sites. He's 30% optimal on FanDuel, 21.9 on DK. Positively leveraged / efficiently owned across both sites. It'll probably catch up with him, so he might slip a little bit negative, but he's quality enough. He's a 30-plus fantasy point in the median, 40-plus boom percentage. He's a strong option to plug in on the guard spot there in the absence of SGA.
All right. We have a new friend in chat that tells us we're being foolish that Peyton doesn't even play, that it's going to be Aaron Holiday.
I mean,
but
he's
they've announced Elfrid Payton in the starting lineup already. That's why we do these shows. Just funning you a little bit. Elf is starting. What are we going to get? We don't know for sure, but as Terry mentioned, I think something in around 26 minutes feels appropriate. But now they're down Chris Paul and Campaign, so and no Cam Johnson. I mean, they're starting to get a little thin with potential ball handlers. We do have Jay Crowder's coming back. I think he missed 1 or 2 games with the groin injury. I guaranteed he was coming back today because I dropped him in my season-long league because I needed a for sure player tonight, and those games locked so early today. So my gift to whomever is a fan of Jay Crowder, I made that one happen. That happens far too often. If we're
going to the Suns, I mean, you have to love the looks of Devin Booker too at 9,600 on FanDuel, 9,000 on DK, multi-position eligible too on the DK slate, 25-ish%. He's going to be optimal a quarter of the time on both sites, suffice to say. And he's efficiently owned. Like, I don't think he's at bad leverage. He's negatively leveraged technically on both, but it's right in line with his optimal rates, and his boom scores there. His median projections are there. And we all know what this guy's capable of when he's the lone gunman on this team. So that's kind of the situation he's getting here, playing alongside a guy like Elf. He might just take this whole thing over and just Elf can sit in the corner behind the 3-point line and, maybe kick the ball around and help facilitate the offense. But I think it's going to be the Booker show. So if you wanted to go to a Booker and like Donovan Mitchell combination and pay up at both guard spots, it's going to immediately differentiate your lineup. But I think you're sacrificing too much value if you go that route. So like, I'd be looking to roster one of those 2 guys along with all these value guys, depending on where you're playing. I know you said you have multiple ones of the values. They fit differently depending on where you're playing, but there's a lot of different combinations you can put together with these guys now too.
All right. We have 2 super chats. I want to remember them quickly because I can't get to them now. They came in between shows. So RJ Hampton versus, I believe it was Elf Payton. I would still lean towards Elf Payton.
Yeah, it's Elf. You save money
and
on,
it's more of a
DK.
per minute production thing for me with Elf than RJ should get more minutes, I would think, than Elf, but I would take that. And then there was one other question, and they were asking about Jeremy Lamb as a GPP play on FanDuel at 3,500.
Just real quick on that Elf versus Hampton question. Do we have a site? Because it is very different on FanDuel where they're the same price and they're essentially the same play, and you get multi-position eligibility out of Hampton that you don't have out of Elf. So I would consider them a toss-up and just put it as wherever you need that 3,500 min price at either guard spot on the FanDuel slate. At point guard, they're a toss-up. If you needed a shooting guard, you use Hampton. On DK, where Hampton's 800 more, that's a very different question. They're totally different values. Moving on to, that was Jeremy Lamb.
Yes, Jeremy Lamb, 3,500 FanDuel play.
He was not on the board. He was one of the other two guys I was talking about just now. We've got him at 16.1 minutes, even with the change. I think this is accounting for all the changes because Davion Mitchell's projected pretty well. Yeah, so we're not giving him much in terms of minutes. Could he stumble into like 20 and change? Sure. But I think there's other min-price guys like RJ Hampton and like Elf Payton on that FanDuel slate that you can slot into that spot. And there's still ways to get different. It's not like a situation where you can say, oh, he's just as good a min-price play and I can get different by doing it. I don't think either of those things is necessarily true enough.
All right. And then one other we had someone that was a new member and now I've lost that too. So
welcome aboard, someone.
Welcome aboard, new member. We appreciate
all the new
that.
members.
It's fun to have the little Awesemo logo, or what do we call it? The badge. You get access to a few special emojicons.
I really like the one that News God's currently got. I think it's the 1 year one because it looks like a crystal ball. So It just like enhances his, his appearance of just delivering these amazing pieces of news just as they break. So timely that it kind of looks like he's telling the future. Not bad.
That's
Malakar's got it too, right there.
It's definitely the way to go. Definitely the way to go. Let's see, whomever. So two reminders for the normally you need to be first in the Fred Van Elite Fan Club and have an Awesemo avatar. If that ends up being you, reach out to me on Twitter and I will work to get you a code. We'll take care of it that way. Tonight is the special offer, and we got the resizing contest now. So it says 200. They've upped it. It'll just automatically resize. Top 20 or 15 or 20 are going to be paid no matter how many people join. We're up to about 85 or 90 right now. That's a new feature over there on the site that we play on for that. But I'll drop that link one more time in chat. But again, if you guys end up winning that with the Awesemo avatar, most days when it's not a special one like today, reach out to me. And if you get top 3, any Awesemo avatar, first 3 Awesemo avatars, let's say it that way, you get 30 free days today. Reach out to me on Twitter and I'll take care of it. If you're already a member, just ping me in Discord. Okay, back on task. I think we cleaned up all those little tricky parts there. I see someone asking about Joel Embiid. We don't know if he's going to be playing or not tonight. He has missed one of the last 30. Pardon me. He's played in 39 of the last 40 games. So that's pretty impressive. Doc Rivers has said at some point both he and James Harden will get a game or two off between now and the end of the season. We did see Harden get one off maybe 2 games ago. I've lost track of the days at this point of the year with all the sports back in swing, but wouldn't surprise me. It was the day they were
in Miami, right?
Yeah, you are correct.
Because everybody was joking.
That's
He
right.
wanted the night off in Miami.
In Miami, right? That makes sense. So, Embiid, we don't know. We don't know. Now, the nice thing is there are 2 games locking at 8:30. There will be ways to maneuver if you go that route. You probably, if you have Embiid and he's not in your utility spot, you want to make sure you've got 2 people from that time slot so you can utilize or maximize what you're doing with your dollars, because it would be a shame. I guess you could downgrade. Worst case would be to Pascal Siakam. Hey, the only 2 active Cameroonians in the association right now. They're squaring off against each other. Just pointing that out. All right. So at the guards,
now if I wasn't on the show, I'd be Googling, looking for if I could find any like high school head-to-head matchups from back in the day that they might have had, or things like that. Like,
I think there's enough.
These are the sidetracks that I get off, and then it's like 6:45, and I'm like, oh my god, I haven't crunched any lineups. It's better when I'm on the shows.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an age gap there. So
that's a good point.
All right. So a quick question, then I'm going to ask you a couple. This is from chat here. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Highland, and Murphy would be in their lineups to pay up for Harden, or if you were to choose one of those discount dandies.
We have a site?
We do not, but I do not like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. that is just me. Bones Highland, I think is
really
reasonable, except he's going in an incredibly tough matchup against Boston. And I think most everybody's healthy for Denver. That makes it tough. Trey Murphy was lightning in a bottle. It was a glorious outcome, 10 days ago when he put up 50 fantasy points, or almost got 50 fantasy points. I think they took a rebound away from him for a late stat correction that cost him the double points and moved him back to 48 DK points or whatever it was. I'm average on him right now. You're going to have to count on a very heavy 3-point shooting night from him. That makes it a little tough for me. I would rather go with Alfred Payton personally among those choices. If I were to rank the three that you had, if that's what we need to do, I would say Murphy, Highland, and Alexander Walker.
That sounds fine to me. I got sidetracked and was letting you answer that one.
There we go. Terry talks about getting sidetracked, then gets sidetracked by something else.
Well, I got sidetracked while looking for those guys because Nickeil Alexander-Walker is not even on my sheet. Are you sure he's not asking about Lonnie Walker?
But Lonnie Walker's ruled out tonight.
Oh, is he? Because Lonnie's on my sheet here. I missed that Lonnie was out, but he's still in our last update. Oh, really? Oh, because he's still in our last update.
Well, that would be my bad, because this morning when I was writing the article, he was.
I mean, he's only in here for 1 minute. It's not like he's relevant. Let's not get sidetracked on it. But he was the only Walker that was coming up when I was searching the spreadsheet.
Yeah, Walker's out with back.
Then I went looking for Nickeil and trying to figure out where he was. So that I was on task, just not ready to answer the question. But Bones didn't look particularly relevant when I looked at him.
Josh Richardson would be someone worthy of consideration. He is slated to play tonight. We have Lonnie Walker, Keita Bates-Diop, and Romeo Langford are all out. So I think that's reasonable at the guards.
There you go.
I'm just looking here. What do we got? Okay, so let's get back. James Harden. Let's utilize him as the pivot because he has small forward eligibility, I believe, on DraftKings right now. Are you landing one way or the other on Harden if we don't have Embiid news? Do you want Harden to be a part of your life, or does that become a late swap thing once if Embiid were to be ruled out, then we would want to go to Harden?
With Embiid in, he's just kind of good. You know, he's 18.4% optimal on FanDuel. He's half that on DK. But you're getting James Harden at 10,000/10,1, depending on which site you're playing on. You're getting him with multi-position eligibility. Shooting guard, small forward on FanDuel allows you to put together some interesting lineup combinations where you're rostering him alongside some of the other premium shooting guards on the board. On DK, the flexibility is a little bit more limited, which leads to the lower optimal rate. He's essentially doubled up on his optimal rate on DK. He's a lot closer and at positive leverage on FanDuel. That said, I wasn't getting to a ton of them just by virtue of those guard spots filling by a lot of other guys. There are other plays on the FanDuel slate that we didn't even touch on at guard, like Klay Thompson. 6,800 for Klay Thompson. With no Steph Curry out there, you're expected to get a ton of looks, ton of usage. 29.4% optimal field, trailing behind that 41.2% boom score probability. I want to get to Klay Thompson ahead of James Harden and then spend that savings on like a big center or something like that. I think that's the preferred approach. If Embiid is out, that A, takes one of those big centers off the board, and B, creates a situation where Harden becomes a lot more valuable. So that really swings on that news about Embiid. As things stand, you can take or leave Harden. He's a good mix and match piece. He's certainly got value. He's a 45-point median projection with upside to 60 on any given slate, and he's inexpensive for that caliber of a player.
All right, one other guy I did want to mention, CJ McCollum. We didn't really cover on him, and I almost had a heart attack because Portland was starting, and I'm like, oh my god, I thought CJ McCollum was something. I'm like, oh yeah, he's with New Orleans now. So chat, informal poll: is it CJ or is it C.J. when you spell CJ McCollum? We're looking at that. So I want chat's answer on that, Terry. But I think CJ McCollum, reasonable play tonight. No Brandon Ingram. I'm blanking on the other person that was ruled out, and I just went away from that page. So let's go back. We
Ingram, no Graham, no Ingram, no Nance.
Graham. It was Devontae Graham. Devontae ' Graham. ruled out there. So I think CJ McCollum's reasonable. I believe he's 39 on Yahoo. I needed $2 extra to get him in the one lineup I'm playing, so I did not land on that. And then all the amazing guard value came out, and you can only really play 3 of those point guards because you can play point guard, and utility. And by doing that, you're costing yourselves doubling up on like a Jokic or Jokic and Siakam or Jokic and somebody else. So it gets a little muddy, but I went with a 3-guard lineup there tonight. But I just missed out on CJ McCollum, and I'm curious your take on it.
How differently would you view CJ McCollum and Klay Thompson, with both kind of acting as the lead dog in the offense that they're in?
Klay Thompson is in my Yahoo lineup because he is small forward over there at $24, I believe.
That is definitely appealing. He's shooting guard only on both DK and FanDuel. 6,800, like I was saying before, on FanDuel makes him really valuable to me. 79 on DK, I think, still keeps him on the board. And on both sites, he's significantly less expensive than McCollum with the same positional eligibility, better optimal rates, better boom score probabilities. And just looking at the production, 1.07 fantasy points per minute across the entire situation, Portland included, for McCollum, 1.06 fantasy points per minute for Klay Thompson across the entire year when he was playing, short minutes in that rotation and just coming back, and all of those things included. Similar usage, similar upside, considering that they're going to be the prime person for offensive production on their respective teams tonight. So I think that's an interesting heads up, and I prefer the Klay side of it, even with a little bit of ownership, additional ownership. I think you're squeezing out better leverage, and you're doing it at a better price. So to me, that leans in Klay's direction. I do really like McCollum here, though. He's another player projected over 45 fantasy points, can get you upside towards 60, 55, 60. So I do like McCollum here, but for the higher price, if that's the decision point, I think Klay is the smarter pick.
Yeah, and that was that he's on Yahoo. I think you just have to put him in your small forward spot and just move on, because Scotty Barnes, I think, is power forward over there. Wendell Carter Jr., obviously power forward over there. I was trying to work in CJ McCollum, and even by going down to Pascal, I couldn't quite get the lineup I wanted, so I ended up going back up to Jokic. But then as a default, with no Fred VanVleet tonight, I put Scotty Barnes in there because he has had some solid uptick in production over the last few games. So I think that is, and he does play a little bit of point guard. They have enough ball handlers there. They all kind of share the ball or share facilitation duties in kind of a non-traditional manner. All right, so we do have Scotty Barnes. What did I say? Oh dear God.
No. I'm just saying not the rookie of the year. I think we agree that Mobley's the rookie of the year, right?
I think it should be.
Just trying to tweak chat.
I think it should be Mobley.
Chat loved Scotty Barnes the other day. Yeah, it's Mobley. He's a runaway train for it.
The super chat here from Corey Ballmer. He is asking a 3v3, and it is relatively straightforward here on DraftKings. So it's Jokic, Bazley, and Cole Anthony versus Eytan, not Eytan, DeAndre Ayton, Tatum, and Poole. So we like the Jokic. It's kind of Jokic versus Jokic and Bazley, I guess, versus DeAndre Ayton and Tatum. I take the first side. Even though I like Poole a little bit better, I still would take the first side.
Yeah, I actually would. I don't know if I lean Cole Anthony or Poole on that question, but I think I would lean toward the massive upside of Jokic over the limited ceiling on Ayton. And then I love Jason Tatum, but I think that makes that is a big enough delta that it's justifiable to go to the Bazley versus Tatum, especially with how frequently optimal Bazley's coming up on DK. He's our leader by optimal lineup appearance rate by 12 percentage points over the next highest player on the board at 38.2%, positively leveraged. And he's coming up with a 50% boom score probability over there, which is like 13 percentage points ahead of everybody else. So he's like the top player on the board on DK anyway. So you're going with the best overall play, the best overall upside player for the entire season, and then a wash at worst at point guard, in my opinion. So I would lean Jokic side.
All right. We have some good answers here. C period, J period, no periods, SEEJAY from multiple people. Well played for all of you that came up with that one. Well played. Siege, Ceej, the Siege.
We already got one of those in DFS.
Siege misspelled, much like CJ Kaltenbach misspells it. There we go. So the right answer, and the other one says CJ no periods because he's not a junior. I didn't know if that's a rule. Maybe that's kind of one that I will look towards as well. But I found that to be interesting. Joe Lacate says his mama calls him Christian. I'm gonna call him Christian. So yes, Christian is his first name on that one. If we default to the the Oregon Herald and the New Orleans Times-Picayune, it is CJ, no periods. Just want to put that out there.
I believe that they're following the AP style book on that one, which eliminates periods in most situations. There are exceptions to that, but I think that's what they're probably doing there. But yeah, I don't know what the players prefer, and I would typically tend to default to that. I was talking about it the other day about the junior thing, the guys that are junior.
Well, RJ Barrett does go by RJ, except his name is like Rowan Alexander Barrett Jr. or something like that.
When the J doesn't actually stand for a name, then they just kind of rope it in like that. Yeah,
right. So that I thought that one was kind of fun. IMAX said he just made that up. Well, you typed it with authority. Clearly, it piqued my interest. So we went with that. Look at that. Jordan's day off and he's in chat. Jordan, don't let your boss see you. Jordan, we're just gonna pretend this didn't happen. I'm gonna do a little Men in Black thing on Chris here. You better pick up your phone when he calls, Jordan. Okay. All right.
He said he had a wedding to go to. What is going on here?
Oh, maybe be a shitty wedding.
Terrible.
He's getting his hair ready. It takes time. It takes time. All right. So moving on to forward, we do have 28 minutes left. A little bit of fun here. I was sort of hoping we'd get. We just got some news. Kings are starting Davion Mitchell, Holiday, Barnes, Lyles, and Sabonis. Why am I? Oh, Harrison Barnes. Too many Barnes tonight. There's only two. Scott,
1.5 is your limit on Barnes's.
Good times.
Does that? I mean, Holiday's been in that like middling kind of range where he's over-owned to his low rates, his low probability metrics. We touched on him briefly before. I was a little dismissive about him just because I think there are better plays. We've got $3,000 guys on the board on DK. We've got similar $3,500 guys. Is he getting into any of your lineups, or like what percentage of 150 lineups from site to site would he be getting into for you?
For whom?
Justin Holiday in the starting lineup.
He probably, I haven't done my stuff yet, but he probably would feather in a little bit on DraftKings. I'm assuming he's like 3,400, 3,600 in that range.
39.
Probably
39,
not that much.
39
with all the guards that we have, not that much.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. And he's owned twice as much as his optimal rate as of the last time I updated this. So 14% versus only 7.5% optimal. So it's not like you're getting anything out of making that pivot. And this is what I was trying to hammer home when I touched on it earlier, is just those other cheap guys are just better in terms of all our probability marks, and don't sweat the ownership because you're going to a guy like Holiday who's less likely to succeed for you, and he's going to be over-owned even in the event that he does. So it's not like you're really gaining a lot of ground for making that pivot. So that was just one, since you read him off in the starting lineup there, I thought weid revisit it real quick because I know that he's
and here's the perfect example from Gridiron Beauties in chat. He says, can you trust Holiday, or is he Holiday or RJ Hampton? No, they're like exactly the same player. Holiday, not afraid to shoot, the oldest of the Holiday brothers, by the way, went to the University of Washington. His younger brother, you may know him as Drew, made the NBA while he was still in college. He will shoot. Sometimes they go in, and occasionally you'll get a couple blocks and steals from him, and then he will do nothing, and you will not like it for days and weeks at a time. RJ Hampton has the slight edge with rebounding, but his offensive skills are about the same from a scoring perspective. He might also have another tick up in the assist category, but they're basically the same player. Excellent comp right there. Thoughts on Donovan Mitchell playing on FanDuel? Actually, I do have some nice thoughts on Donovan Mitchell. Let's go over here and look at the Yahoo play of the day. I I did not end up putting him in my lineup because we got all those other guards, but this analysis does still stand. So I said that tonight the Jazz will be running shorthanded as they've already ruled out Mike Conley on the front end of this back-to-back for rest. Daniel House, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Azubuike are all out. Trent Forrest, I think he has a wrist issue. I didn't see what his availability was. And then Hassan Whiteside should be available, non-COVID related illness. But Forrest is if he does come back, he's missed the last 4. Whiteside has just missed 1. But I wanted to point out they play again tomorrow, but this really needs to be Donovan Mitchell, who without Conley and Bogdanovic on the court, he averages 1.4 fantasy points per game. While Terry's Knicks have really started to turn it around after I told that story about them 2 weeks ago of how bad they were. They are 5-2 in their last 7. They're still 8-19 in their last 21, though.
That's more
yes, my math didn't work there. In their last 27. The New York defense has gotten much, much better. Over their last 7 games, they are allowing just 102 points per 100 possessions. However, on the season, they are still middle of the pack. Mitchell, I think tonight on Yahoo is a very good price. I think at 36, at Gobert, I think is also good at 33 because the Knicks matchup is not what it once was.
Yeah, I just dropped a link in chat. I mentioned Mitchell earlier when I was talking through some of the guards, but just to hit him again, he's just extremely valuable at that 8,500 in multi-position on FanDuel. I think he's got a lot of value at 88 and shooting guard only over on DK. And as the primary weapon over there right now, I definitely want to go to him. And he's cheap by comparison to some of those other guys. Like he's cheap as compares to Booker, and he's got very favorable by comparison probability marks in both the optimal rate and the boom score probability. So definitely want to get to him. I wrote about him on the site today. He was a featured player in my article, which, like I said, I just dropped a link to in the chat. So you can pull up more and read some more about your chosen site.
So we both landed on him as our featured player.
I guess we did.
Early today. See, this is what happens when all the news comes out. It chases everything around. One more super chat here, and then we'll run through some more forwards. This is FanDuel, so the blue site. Jokic, Baisley, and I'm going to assume Dante DiVincenzo, or Sabonis, one of the Barnes, and Boucher.
Hyper specific question.
Looking at I can't tell which.
Probably Jokic and Baisley, I'm guessing.
I'm going to say that
just by virtue of it being, it's Jokic on the one hand, and then it's Baisley who's the second highest. I know Sabonis was on the other side of that question. He's projected for a bigger median projection, but he's also 2,200 more expensive than Baisley on the FanDuel slate. And you're gaining 4 percentage points of optimal lineup rate. You're over-owned by comparison and at the same boom score probability. So I like the Baisley and Jokic combination, and the rest of that was just kind of a wash the way I heard it.
And that's sort of where I'm landing on it as well. I'm going to close out my Yahoo lineup, but I did want to throw out, if you guys want to play this same lineup, go ahead, but I'm sure you can find a 2v2 pivot that will be much better than this because I made this one 25 minutes ago. Teo Maledon, Jordan Poole, Elfrid Payton, and Trey Mann are my guards. So I'm playing four guards. Klay Thompson, I think everybody should put in their lineup at $24. I think the same of Wendell Carter Jr. at 28. I think the same as Scotty Barnes. Now we do get him at power forward here on DraftKings. I am at 33. I'm enthralled by the fact that Fred VanVleet is out. If he was not out, I would not be playing Scotty Barnes. I am hoping for 35 from Scotty Barnes, but he has upside to 40, which he has hit, I think, in 4 of his last 7 or 8 games, including a 50 fantasy point performance, if I remember correctly. And then I'm building around Jokic tonight. So those are I would say that's my core player pool. There's about 7 other guys that I think you could easily mix and match in a 2v2 and be just as happy with that one. I think the weakest links on this one would be Trey Mann and Teo Maledon. I just have Maledon in there because this zeroed out the lineup, so it worked for me.
That's always a good way to close out a lineup. I actually have a few $100 left on the table on FanDuel just because it's interestingly priced. I went with 2 of the cheapo guys at the point, and then you can build in like a really $8,000 player or $7,000 player throughout if you use Mo Bamba at center. So I went that route when I was building it earlier. I'm just playing one lineup just to have something in there today. Bamba's got a ridiculous, 8.8 optimal lineup appearance rate on FanDuel, but a nice 36.2% boom score probability for $5,000. So that's the kind of tournament play that I'm looking for. Under 10% owned with that size boom score probability, a median projection just under 30 fantasy points. I'm fine with booking that for $5,000 if in combination with two very low priced guards, it gets me a $7,500 to $8,000 player at basically every other position. I didn't check the upside. I didn't check how it projected out to next to the optimal. Things have changed a little bit since then, but I was using most of the guys like Elf is in that lineup, which frightens me and I don't like it. But yeah, I was using most of the guys, so it's in line with the construction that we're talking about. I'm curious to see how it does, but I just think it's unique what you can do on FanDuel today with different combinations of players across just how the multi-position and the pricing falls at this point. You can build some really unique constructions with the same players just by moving them around positionally, and then you naturally get to a swap that not everybody's considering because they just didn't put the lineup together that way. So like if you land on a decision where you're comparing James Harden at small forward to other small forwards, and a lot of other people are using Harden at shooting guard or not at all, and I'm not saying that's necessarily the comparison point today, if you land in situations like that, your lineup is immediately going to be different than a lot of the field while potentially maintaining a lot of upside. So it's just an interesting way to put slates together just by clicking guys into non-common positions.
All right. Rounding out sort of the player pool before I close this down. The main reason I'm closing this down is last time we did a show together, Terry, remember I built out all my lineups, but it was in the Yahoo Fantasy Cruncher and not the DraftKings Fantasy Cruncher. I don't want to do that tonight. But DeJounte Murray accelerated up my short list, but I ran out of guard spots. But he's at 50. Same thing happened with Donovan Mitchell at 36. But those guys are both close, as well as Devin Booker at 43. I think at the center spot, I think their Sabonis is very good at 38. I really like Siakam at 37. I think Julius Randle at 40 was an interesting power forward option, but I would rather have Thompson. I'd rather have Scotty Barnes and Wendell Carter Jr. From there. And then on the short list, just missing the cut list was RJ Barrett. Still a little too spendy. Yahoo's gotten ahead of the curve. You could get him prior to this in the mid to upper 20s for about the last 10 games. He's at 32 tonight. There was other spots I could go to, particularly Klay Thompson for an $8 savings or a $7 savings.
That's aggressive, I think, on RJ. 7,100 on FanDuel, small forward shooting guard, and 7,800 with 5 position eligibility on the DK slate. Changes the picture a little bit for him, but he's still only 12% optimal and slightly over-owned to that. More concerningly on the DK slate, only a 12% boom score probability. So that's his probability of hitting a 5x plus 10, like a salary adjusted required ceiling score to hit a quote unquote, tournament winning lineup, a 1% lineup, let's say a 400 pointer. That becomes concerning when you get a guy projected in the mid 30s with only a 12% shot of hitting a 5x plus 10 on a $7,800 salary. By comparison on the FanDuel slate at 7,100, he's 21.8% likely to hit that off of a 35-point median projection, but he's significantly owned, 27% popular against 19.8% optimal over there. I think it's an interesting heads up looking at him versus Randall. And those are some of the guys that you can shift around. They're different positions, and they're $600 apart $1,400 apart in price on FanDuel. But I think you can land on different combinations where you're playing either Siakam or Randall, and then either Barrett or another similar small forward. So that's just two of the inflection points there. I'm curious to see which one of those guys, because they land very similarly in terms of our probability metrics. They're right next to each other on both sites, Randall and Barrett. Do you have a preference? It sounded like it was Randall, even though he's more expensive.
It would be Randall.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that one. He
really has just had so many good games recently because they're still short those guards. He ripped off a whole bunch of assists. Like he had 6 assists in the first quarter, I think 2 or 3 games ago. And then in the last game, I had gone his assists over, and I think he ultimately ended up getting there along with Barrett. But he had like 8 rebounds or something crazy in the first quarter. I'm like, I should have taken his rebounds because that like his over under was like 9 or something or 8.5. I was like, oh wow. But he's kind of back in one of those modes. But he's gone through several I don't know the doldrums is the right word, but he had like 6 or 7 games in a row where he failed to crack 40 fantasy points. But heading into that, he had like 6 where he was averaging 50. He's just been all over the place. But it seems like that he's in a better groove now. But when any of the guards or anybody else comes back, I think that'll change things around a little bit.
Plenty of space.
Cam Reddish he's done for the year, I think, right?
Yeah.
So Reddish is out. Rose may come back. And I think they've just gave the
but why would you at this point,
Yeah.
And Randall's an underrated facilitator too. 25.2% assist percentage for this over the course of the season, and can contribute a little bit better than that. He's had a rough year, to your point. He's down to 1.14 fantasy points per minute across the entire season on similar usage to what he had last year when he was a 1.21 player. So just had a bad year, or a down year anyway. Returned to more Julius Randle form. This is more the player that I thought the Knicks were getting. Wish we'd figured that out before giving him a big contract extension, but we'll worry about that later. Somebody asked about Poku. Are you getting any Poku? 5,300 power forward on FanDuel, 51 small forward and power forward on DK. I think he's a lot more interesting on DK, coming up about quarter of the time in the optimal lineup.
I believe I will get him on DK because of the double forward eligibility is my guess. I'm going to upload our projections now and we will find out. Am I from Toronto? Our dear friend Butthole Jenkins would like to know. No, I'm not. And I know I'm saying Siakam incorrectly. And I've watched the last few of the games and I've been trying to say it like the Toronto announcers do. And I can't quite get there. And it's not like they're not Canadian accent or anything. I know I'm saying it slightly wrong.
Siakam's not a Canadian name.
No, I know, but if you don't even start, we don't have enough time to start on that one.
I knew you weren't from Toronto. I knew you weren't from Toronto because you pronounce the second T. People from Toronto pronounce it Toronto without pronouncing the second T. It's not Toronto up there. It's Toronto.
Interesting. Now, T-Dot. I have heard of T-Dot.
There you go.
Here's the trivia for chat. Like OG Anunoby. Is it O period, G period, or is it OG? And is Terry an OG? O period, G period.
That I think we all know.
We got going on here. We've got the Best Bets Discord. That is a fun channel. So what happens in there is multiple times a day, Alex Baker, Ben Raza, and Steve the Colts Buzzard are dropping in their picks for a variety of sports. In this case, it is mostly basketball, but it is of the college and NBA variety. There are player props in there. There are game bets. There are total over/under bets. Each one puts in about 3. So I would say somewhere between 3 and 8. Some days there are more if there are good bets. Other days they'll say, guys, there's not a ton out there I like, but here's the ones I want to focus on. But that is a new feature here at Awesemo. So you guys will want to learn a little bit more about that. If you are behind the paywall and a member of the Awesemo Discord, you can access that channel. So that is something you will want to think about, because that is yet another benefit there in the Awesemo Discord. The other thing that's nice is you get a lot of office hours. Steve Buzzard does them, Jason Floyd does them, Josh Engelman does them, as well as quite a few others. That's something that's very helpful. You want to ask about a process, you want to ask about what they look for in betting, you want to ask about what they do for DFS, you want to ask Jason about MMA stuff. There's all sorts of excellent information being shared in there. One of the many benefits that you get with an Awesemo subscription. All right.
One thing I got to do real quick. Let me just clean that up real quick, real quick, since this is an exciting new product that we've launched. We do have to fix the heading. And if any of our folks who work on the marketing stuff are listening to me, or maybe Chris can grab it, the heading on that is a little bit wrong. It's not just a Discord channel. That's what it started as when we were doing a pilot project. But we're putting the picks up on the site for one, so you can access them through the site. You don't actually have to be in Discord. You're going to be, if you're subscribed here, you'll be able to get behind the paywall, get to them on the site. But on top of that, we're also building in a few different things. Alex built a little ROI tracker spreadsheet that we're using where we're displaying all of our picks. What we can do with that, we're going to have it out on Google Sheets, so you can download it, clear out the data, and use it as your own ROI tracker. So we're providing that. The Discord access is full-blown access to our entire Discord. The guys are giving guaranteed numbers of picks throughout the day. They're not guaranteed picks. I wish they were. That would be killer. But they're a guaranteed number of premium picks. And these are the bets that Alex and Ben and Steve are actually making. So you can trail their actual bets, follow along with them. And like you were saying, they're in the Discord. They're talking about them all throughout. But but it's a lot more. It's a full-blown product, just like everything else we've got at the site. So let's see if we can get that changed on this week's DMP, if anybody out there in the marketing department's listening.
All right. Excellent. Butthole Jenkins wins this one. OHHGEE Anobi.
Not
Okay.
bad. I like it. What about
any relation to
Simpson?
Leroy Jenkins?
We can check how the city of Los Angeles officially referred to Orenthal James Simpson. It is Orenthal James, right?
It was. Yes, it was.
It still is. As far as
damn it, I'm AJ. This is AJ. You know who it is. Oh, AC.
AC.
Yeah. AC. Yeah. Not Atlantic City.
Later parodied by Seinfeld with Kramer and Steve Gunderson, I think was the guy's name.
Painful. Barnes or Mitchell? I would
Which
take
Barnes?
Scotty.
People start. Please start.
Scotty. That's got to be Scotty.
Scotty Barnes or Davion Mitchell?
No.
See, that's why I asked.
I see.
Or is it right? Or it could be Scotty Barnes or Donovan Mitchell, or it could be Harrison Barnes or Davion Mitchell.
Okay.
Those questions, those work together. In both cases, I think it would be Mitchell. How about that?
I like it. I like the way I like what you're doing there. Here's an official super chat. Brian Brooks. We got 9 minutes left. Jackson Hayes, we have not mentioned yet tonight. DeAndre Hunter or Trey Lyles. I'm actually leaning towards Trey Lyles in this one myself. Not something I thought I would say anytime this year, but here we are. It's spring in the NBA.
I had him in a build earlier. I just don't know that I need a $51 or a $4,600 forward/center type guy now. I was getting a lot of my guard value or my value at the guard spots after all the news changed. Earlier in the day, he was more relevant, Trey Lyles, to me. Like I said, I had him in a build, but now he's dropped below 10% optimal on both sites. Still getting ownership, like he's still more relevant than that. 15% ownership, DK, pushing 20% in the last update on FanDuel. It might have slipped a little bit. I haven't really updated since we started the show. So we're probably a little bit cleaner than that, but it's not a great look. I don't really love the Trey Lyles spot now that we've just got all that guard value.
Right. Reminder, we got 8 minutes to go. We are going live tomorrow at 6:30. That will be Josh Engelman doing the process show. At 10 o'clock, you're going to get the strategy show with Lofty and Adam. Then you got the NHL strategy show. Of course, we have our new series Live Before Locks, kicking off 3 hours of NBA coverage up to lock. And there's that extra half hour tomorrow afterwards. I think we'll see. Crystal square me away. There's only an extra half hour if I'm not regularly scheduled. If I'm regularly scheduled, there's no half hour. That's the new rule I'm going to use going forward, Chris. All right. Another $5 super chat here. This is for FanDuel. This is for Mitchell. We're going to assume Donovan. This is for Scotty. We will assume Barnes and J Rich. So there's our cheapie, Josh Richardson. Going on the other side, DeJounte Murray, Gary Trent Jr., and NAW could also move in JaVale. Or would you go JaVale a smash if Embiid sits? That I don't know. So let's focus on Mitchell, Scotty, and J Rich versus DeJounte, Gary Trent, and NAW. In this case, I think I'm going to take the second. That's how much I like DeJounte Murray.
I love DeJounte Murray, but I think on the strength of the Mitchell and Scotty combination, it's probably the first one to me. I like the Scotty side of that a little bit better than the Trent, and the J Rich a little bit better than the NAW. It's close, though. I really love DeJounte Murray. I've written about him. He's got to be the player I've written about the most all season long. The JaVale question, part of that confuses me. I'm assuming they mean DeAndre Jordan and just wrote
or JaVale. I don't know here because nobody's I guess DeAndre Jordan. I guess DeAndre Jordan makes sense as the backup.
He'd be
and I would
backup,
say no,
but I mean,
no. Okay, here's the better way. If Embiid was out, do you think Jordan plays more than 12 and a half minutes? I don't.
If you don't think he plays more than 12 and a half minutes, then there's no point in playing him at all.
Right.
Yeah.
16.
Yeah. Even then.
So, but these are the ones you want to ask because it's the centers that can come in at these extreme discount prices and come in and get a double-double, and all of a sudden they're breaking it. it's been a while since we've seen Jordan do that with any regularity whatsoever on multiple teams now.
Yeah, it's not a play I'd go looking for. I think we've got all the value we need in the guard spots. I'm just pulling up the most recent games. He played 17 minutes 5 games ago, and then it's 12, 12, 13, 13. Granted, that's with, Embiid playing. Yeah, I don't think he's on the board really. I'm not going to rush there. I think we've got plenty of value at the guard positions.
All right, you want to run with a question or two here? I'm going to do a little magic on the background, upload some lineups. Apparently, I registered for contest today.
Oh, there you go. Surprise. Make sure you're using the right fantasy cruncher.
I am in DraftKings.
I like it. Brandon Furlow says, I'm locking Sabonis. I watch every Kings game, and every time Fox is off the court, they use him like Jokic. I kind of agree that I like the Sabonis spot a lot now without Fox out there. Just taking a look at where we've got him on the board on FanDuel. He's our top guy by optimal lineup rate. On DK, respectable optimal rate. He's not over-owned. He's owned slightly ahead of his optimal rate, but it's essentially efficient. It's a 22-19. Might have cleaned up a little bit since I last updated this, but at 9,400, there's plenty of upside there. You're talking about a 1.22 per minute player over normal circumstances. And like this person just said, without Fox out there, he's going to have a little bit more to do. He's another forward with very good contributions in other categories. He's got a 23.7% assist rate and a 17.6% rebounding percentage to go with his 63.6% true shooting. So a lot of work around the rim, a lot of counting stats to go with his good production of scoring. So I do like that Sabonis call and love it with the Fox being out. Let's see here. What else we got? Holding out for Raptors starting lineup. It's be helpful. I did write a little bit about Boucher. Did you get to any Boucher? If you can answer while you're clicking around over there. He was somebody I was more interested in.
I've got pretty relaxed caps right now because I'm going to change it around because I really want some from the first game, basically the Orlando Oklahoma City game, and I'm going to front load on that. So
Boucher kind of falls into that bucket. He hasn't really changed. 25.8 minute projection, 4,900 center and power forward on FanDuel, 4,700 power forward only on DK. I wrote about him on the site earlier. What changed is some of the values around him. He became slightly less valuable. What is still interesting about him is that just nobody's going to him. He's 2.7% owned on FanDuel, 4.7 on DK. You can squeeze a little bit of leverage out of him, but with his optimal rate slipping below 10% on both sites now, I don't know that we need to go there. It's just another one of those situations like with the forward we were talking about before, where I just think we're more likely to get good value out of those guard, the extreme values at guard, like Elf and like Holiday and RJ Hampton and these other guys that we're talking about, where we want to be rostering these big power forwards and centers, the guys like Sabonis, guys like Jokic, guys like Embiid, assuming he plays. And then if you've got spare change, you can get to the mid-range types, the RJ Barretts at the small forward position, the Julius Randles for cheap at power forward, like we talked about, the McCollums, the Mitchells. So some of those guys are in play if you go to the cheaper guards where they're not necessarily in play if you're paying just a few hundred to 1,000 more for some of the cheapo forwards. So that extra 100, that extra 1,000 does make a difference here. Let's see. Uzi, super chat, $5. Appreciate that, Uzi. Trae Young, McCollum, Trey Lyles, or Sabonis, Booker, Cole Anthony on FanDuel. For me, that's Sabonis, Booker, Cole Anthony with a pretty big bullet. I like Trae Young, but he wasn't really coming up significantly high on the FanDuel board. McCollum was. Trey Lyles, we talked about kind of down board, where I think you get more out of Cole Anthony in that third spot. And I really love the Sabonis and the Booker plays. So it would be that second group pretty strongly there for me, Uzi.
I would definitely agree with that. I did end up with 50% Baisley, 50% Okashevsky, but that was again because I just had the caps up that high. If I had it to do for real, I'd be half on both of those. I did not get to any Toronto, so I'm going to have to fix some stuff on the back end, especially that Fred Van Elite fan club. I have to figure out if it's going to be Scotty Barnes, if it's going to be Amani Brooks. I'll play some Toronto people in that lineup. I left that one blank, so don't worry. I'll take one of the lesser options in that one. But reminder tonight, special offer: top 3 finishers with an Awesemo avatar tonight only. Otherwise, we go back to the default. You got to win it with an Awesemo avatar.
Where do shares come down between these the value guards? Just curious on whichever site you want to talk about. Whichever site you had the bigger slate of lineups.
Yes. Well, 100% of all of them on Yahoo because I played just one lineup there. But I do have 60% Peyton, 60% Booker right now. That ended up being my spend option. I did get to 55% CJ McCollum. Again, that was a function of my caps being too high, and that game is going to lock. I ended up with 60% Maladon, and then 20% Davion Mitchell, 6% RJ Hampton, 1% Anthony, 1% Cole, or 1% Fultz.
I didn't hear Trey Mann in there anywhere.
I did not, that I'm sad about.
That was, I was going to start that question is just asking.
Oh, no, I do. Sorry, 55. So Maladon's 59, Mann is 55. There we go.
Okay. All right. That makes, I would have been surprised if he wasn't in there at all. I was wondering if there was going to be a distinction between those two.
Did I uncheck that box?
Yeah, that would have been weird if they had not been there at all. But yeah, I was curious as to where he would drop in with all those other extreme values since he was like that mid-range price by comparison. But all right. Interesting.
And then Wendell Carter Jr. 60. I'm going to be winning all the money for the first hour with this slate.
It sure sounds like a hell of a list.
I got 3% of Pascal Siakam. That's my only Toronto player right now. So.
But see what, and that's the thing. Like you read off a list of players like that, and outside of McCollum, I think everybody else on that list is like mediocre to like bad to low end or like backup type names. But then like the list of players that you're not currently including is like a list of stars or upper mid-range type guys.
Correct.
It kind of fills out our point about why you play these guys and why they're so important and why you can roster them even when the entire field is like, there's tons of people right now who have a matching list of lineups. And then it's about what you're doing with the rest of that money, where you're spreading that money. Are you going even distribution? Are you going even more starsy scrubsy? And what are you getting to? So it's just really interesting at that point of the slate, but it illustrates, kind of none of those names are overly appealing, but all the names you didn't say are going to be highly appealing names.
All right. Hassan Whiteside is available. Trent Forrest is out. I had 17% Forrest, so I'll be maneuvering that around. I think he was like 3 or 3,100 on DK. The late games I have, and I'll back down off this number. I've got 37% Devin Vassell, 18% Looney, 17% Embiid, 10% Keldon Johnson, 6% Clay, 6% Poole. I want more of those guys, so I'm gonna have to go balance some stuff around. But the one okay thing about doing this jam them in thing that I did, that it will pick up enough of the cheap players. I got an hour to figure this out. I left 40% of my lineups just empty with nobody from this game, so I'll have some maneuverability here. But that, like last night, I ran into a similar problem, like I do almost every time I'm on live before lock. So I ran with 70% cap, and if Porzingis had not come back in, because when I got ready for bed, the Wizards were down 16, and I was just like, I'm not even staying up for this. By the time I was done brushing my teeth, they'd almost came back and tied it just before, I think it was just before halftime. And then I went to bed and woke up and they won by like 17 points or something, because Porzingis had played more minutes than I thought on the back-to-back. I went from 5Xing as I was falling asleep to just doubling up. But that was the difference, because I had jammed in on so many other players that nobody had, that I had made my stand there because I'd capped him at 10%. So this just shows the extreme of the different ways you can go. I've been listening a lot to the High Stakes podcast by Neil Orfield. So it's been very interesting to hear how some of these top players approach different things, and how there are many ways to win at DFS, sort of depending on your expectations, your risk tolerance, what is your time horizon, what are you trying to do, etc. But there's been a few things I've picked up to say, oh, I hadn't thought like that. I'd kind of been doing that, but okay, now it makes sense. And there's other things I've learned from that podcast, like, oh wow, I'd never thought of it that way, and I probably should, right? So you learn from these higher level players. Now, I'm not putting millions of dollars at risk over the course of the year, but it is helpful to never have to redeposit.
Yeah. And all those concepts still apply regardless of what level you're playing on. And people, maybe don't think about that so much, but like, if you're putting quarter entries in and you're paying $37.50 for 150 lineups, if you're putting nickel entries in and paying $7.50 or whatever for 150 lineups, the concepts all still apply. And you're actually playing in lighter stakes tournaments, so you're getting weaker competition. So like you'll see things like guys who go up in ownership in the higher stakes contests because they're better plays and the sharper players are getting to them, where you're playing against a weaker field. There's 190,000 people in it, so your odds of winning the thing are a little bit lower, of course, but it's a great place to put those different concepts into practice and to learn how to max enter and to learn the mechanics of it. For one, just how the hell do I get it out of Fantasy Cruncher into this, out of that, and into FanDuel quickly enough in 5 minutes after news changes is a mechanical thing that you have to learn. You have to get really good at doing those things efficiently and quickly, on top of all the DFS concepts that you need to apply. So just starting out, mass multi-enter those cheapo contests until you just get good at the concepts and start playing with and labbing out some of those things that you hear on podcasts. And, when sharp players talk, listen. And I love listening to stuff like what you're talking about with Neil's new podcast. I mean, it's just a great spot to go to for resources.
Yeah, and we've got tons of resources. We have some brilliant people, heavy subscribers and stuff that are just dropping knowledge constantly in the Discord, which is very helpful.
Yep.
I got to meet a couple of weekends ago. I went to Nashville with one of our users, JA187.
Yep.
Man, that guy is sharper than sharp. He has thought this math, all this stuff through. He's really good in Excel. He's got all this other stuff, and he was explaining things to me that, while I knew back in the day from my finance classes about Monte Carlo simulations or whatever, it was 30 years ago for me. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Or, oh yeah, I guess you can formula that one out. Or, oh, that I didn't think of it like that. Right. So just getting to talk to people in real time is a lot of fun. Now, not all of us get to do that, but listening to some of these podcasts, especially the one Neil's doing, very, very helpful. From that, and
we go through, and I mean, that DFS 101 channel that we created in Discord is phenomenal, and that's where Jason J187 hangs out all the time. And he's the only person in our entire Discord who's got that little certified helpful Excel nerd badge, just because of how much work he does in there. He took up the mantle of what I used to do in there before I worked at the site, just, answering questions, trying to be helpful, hanging out, and just being in there all the time. And he ran with it. I mean, he by far surpassed anything I used to do, I think, in terms of how frequently he's around, how patient and helpful he is with people, and just his knowledge and what he does. And he doesn't even work here, guys. He's just in our Discord all the time answering questions, just because he's a good guy and he's really sharp and really good at this stuff. And we've got a few people like that. So it's worth it to subscribe to the site just to get Discord and just to get access to these sharp minds and learn how to do this stuff. Not to mention all our projections, the ownership, the boom bust, all the stuff you get behind the scenes. So worth it.
All right. Well, we're going to get on out of here. We're going to let Chris
we're doing
go.
23 more minutes.
We can talk for 23 more minutes just to show that there was an extra.
I kind of thought we were just heading there anyway.
You can X out, Chris. We'll take care of it from here.
Not when I start playing the music.
All right. Well, we will get on out of here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on a Sunday. We had well over 1,000 people. That means a lot to us, helps us continue to give free shows to you guys, and that's something that is important to us. Again, we're starting all over tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning, so check it on out. Josh Engelman and The Process. You can follow Terry out there on Twitter at DigitalB21. I am at EMac DFS, and of course, it is Awesemo _COM. With that, gamers, good luck.